planning board session and calling it to order, and may we have a roll call, please?
Chair LaFaro,
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty,
Present.
the Secretary is here, Board Member Catalinato is absent, Board Member Mutu,
Present.
Board Member Neely,
Present.
Board Member Fulham.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
Please join us for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, do we have approval of minutes? No minutes.
We do not.
No minutes. Okay, we're going to go a little out of order on the agenda, and we're going to take number 21, I believe it is.
Yep.
Yes, town board referral, amending sections of the code for recreational. This is recreational. Okay.
Do you have one of these?
Now,
Yes.
everybody has a copy of the legislation? Okay, Michael, you going to present it?
Sure, thank you, Chair LaFaro. So 2 years ago, I believe we spoke here about medical cannabis. We went over some standards at the time, and we incorporated some of those standards that we knew were coming from the state for recreational, just in case in the scenario that someone who was pursuing medical would want to pursue recreational. But today, we're here now where we're looking at permitting recreational cannabis dispensaries across the town. And I wanted to take a moment to go over how we came to the current zoning districts that we've identified as potential landing sites. So we're looking at highway business and shopping center business with special exception standards. So for the most part, our special exception standards mirror the state. In many instances, we're preempted. While some towns across Long Island, while they didn't opt out of cannabis, they then passed their own regulations. We anticipate that they're going to have some legal issues with the state because they passed their regulations prior to the state releasing any kind of guidance document and or adopting their own standards. Meanwhile, within their guidance document, they have identified where they preempt us. And we took those standards under consideration, and we, as I said, mirrored them in our special exception standards. Now, we'll get to those standards in a moment, but why HB and SCB? So historically, towns across the country have put this use in LI 40 initially, not always on purpose. They had standards that were 1,000-foot setbacks from parks and schools, et cetera, and then it ends up being in an industrial area. Well, the problem was they quickly realized, and I learned this when I attended that APA meeting out west a couple years ago in San Francisco. Kyle Collins had asked me to sit in on that. I thought it was a joke, but here we are. Luckily, I did. And what they found was when you have a retail use in an LI 40 or light industrial zone, well, you have a level of traffic that was never considered for that area. You have pedestrian circulation that was not considered for an area where they maybe have a cement factory or other light industrial uses. So eventually they reduced those standards, and they found that this use was better suited in the downtown and in their retail zones where retail is suggested. And so the research that later followed when we began pursuing this was a combination of cold calling police chiefs in Massachusetts, Colorado, planners, getting a feel for what are the issues associated with this use. Is it benign? Is it just from the launch, where you have so many people showing up and and interestingly enough, so often their responses were, you're gonna need people to help with traffic. You're gonna need porta potties for long lines. And that was the suggestion coming from a police chief. Not that this was increasing accidents or that the downtown had now had a seedier feel or anything like that. And this is the purpose of these calls, was to just kind of feel it out, to have a better understanding. And that's what we did. So when we thought about our zoning districts and where it would fit within the town, we looked at LI 40, we looked at VB, we looked at SCB, HB, and we realized that there are still at this time some concerns about putting in village business, children walking by it, although the state is regulating how these buildings look, and there won't be, and that's actually, maybe I can show kind of what this looks like. That's why I brought this here, and I have to look up, because I don't have it over there. Or I guess I can look in front of me, I forgot. So, we have kind of an idea of what these cannabis retail dispensaries would look like. And at first I had assumed they would look somewhat like a head shop in New Paltz, next to a university town. What we found is they don't. They have more of the appearance of an Apple store. So this is an example. Every example here is a real store. These were taken from either Massachusetts or California. I think I might have one from Texas and a few other sites, but this is reality, not conceptual. So again, it has this kind of modern designs or not. They vary in many respects, but they resemble either bars, cafes, or some unique store that you've never wandered into that sells makeup. It could be anything. Their look and feel, there's a variety here. But what we're not finding is, again, the initial concerns that we've had over the years. From the outside, which I'll get to in a moment, this one I may or may not have witnessed or visited in person to confirm, and it does look like that inside. And from the outside, we're looking at buildings that look residential in nature or commercial, something you would see in a shopping center business zone, or you would see on highway business. Columbia Care, we're not seeing cannabis signs. If anything here, if you see a cannabis logo or term, that's something that the state has already accounted for, and that wouldn't be allowed in New York State. But you can see how they advertise themselves, and from Columbia Care to Sanctuary, they're not using language that would necessarily make a kid walking by assume that it could be cannabis. And so that kind of played into our thinking behind SCB versus VB. Whereas SCB, again, while retail, you do visit an SCB site and you go to your destination and you often leave. It's not an area where you're visiting with your family and going for a walk after dinner. HB, again, it's for low trip generation retail. There are some concerns with regards to traffic, and that's why we're here. We wanted to hear what your thoughts are and what other mitigative standards we could put into our this code that we're missing. So again, this is a town board referral for your comments on how do we account for some of the things that we perhaps the planning staff has not been considering at this time. But you are all experts and really kind of have that perspective. So does anyone have any questions? Because I can keep going.
I have a question about
Sure.
distances.
Sure.
You've got 500 feet from a school,
Mm-hmm.
200 feet from a church, house of worship,
Mm-hmm.
1,000-foot radius from another non-medical cannabis dispensary. So I want to know where those distances, where they came from,
Sure. Great
and
question.
why you adopted particularly the one from schools, which is 500 feet.
Mm-hmm. So the distances are all from the state. And
Their
we're-
state said.
Mhm. And we're also preempted here. We can't make them larger, we can't make them shorter.
You can make them larger.
No, we can't.
Have other towns done the exact same thing that have this?
Other towns have passed their own regulations prior to the guidelines coming out. And while I can't speak on their legal situations, but we understand that they're going that directions towards lawsuits, including Riverhead. We've been told that they're going to sue the state because they passed standards. Now the state comes out with their own guidelines, and that's the perspective.
But you're saying that a municipality cannot issue its own guidelines, not guidelines, but certainly distances from schools on this?
Well, luckily Kathleen just appeared, but so when MRTA law was passed, MRTA, marijuana, retail tax, right? Okay, that's why we have Kathleen. It identified these standards. It's 500 feet, these 200 feet, and it said this in this instance we're preempted by the state to go beyond or below. We can't say we want to ignore this, and I can't say that we think it should be 1,000 feet. They laid it out there. So as you know, like with the Energy Conservation Code, we can exceed the state. But in this context, because it was written and clearly defined, we don't have that ability.
That's interesting. Kathleen, any reason that can you come?
Good afternoon, board members. So, basically, the state, through the Office of Cannabis Management, has promulgated these regulations, and they've decided that they're going to occupy this field, right? They're preempting these regulations for local municipalities, which I think is fair to say it wasn't clear at the time that the cannabis law was adopted into New York State law, that these regulations were going to be as detailed as they are in terms of giving municipalities more options as to where they place things. So these are the regulations that have been posted. These are out for public comment right now. We did comment on a few of them. But as Michael indicated, the distances are articulated within here, and the state has said that we cannot change those. We're preempted from doing so.
We really only included them just for lay folk and those interacting with our code to be able to easily find those standards, because also they include some measurements, whether you're measuring from the property line or measuring from the front entrance of the store. And so we wanted that very
That's
clear.
defined.
Right. And that's all from the state.
Well, one of my recommendations then is completely shot down, because I was going to say 1,000 feet from schools, not 500 feet, but if we have no authority to do that.
Yeah, and that was actually a comment as well, I believe, from the Hampton Bays CAC. They
Yeah.
had asked that it be stretched to 1,000 feet. And unfortunately, we don't have the option to do that.
If the state releases that or loosens up those regs, then they notify us and we have an opportunity to amend.
For sure, but I mean, at this point, because we've rolled out VB, HB isn't typically near schools. So we're already beyond most likely 1,000 feet in many instances because of just where the nature where highway business retail exists and SCB. And if you think about Bridgehampton Commons versus where Macy's is currently located and Wild by Nature.
Okay.
You had mentioned, when you're showing the looks of these stores, which do look very kind of sophisticated look to them, but in reading real quickly the signage and everything, I don't see anything that, they couldn't put, the name Head Shop or Pot Shop and a big leafy thing out there.
So,
It's
well,
actually in there.
it's in the state.
It's in the
as well.
state, right.
Yeah.
and
Under
it's
signage, page
It
5.
says,
It's also on, it's in our special exception regs,
Letter M.
and number 4, and number 5, but in particular number 4 here, I think. Tom will address your concern. Signs shall comply with Part 129 of the regulations promulgated by OCM, including but not limited to a prohibition from using or displaying colloquial references to cannabis or depictions of cannabis, cannabis products, paraphernalia, or the imagery or action of smoking or vaping. And that is meant to capture.
where is that in here?
It should be
Page
number
five.
four.
Page 6.
Yeah,
Page
under letter.
5, I saw
Page 6.
non-essential
Number 4
Under letter
under
M.
signage.
signage.
Number 4.
3, 4, and 5.
On page 5.
Okay, so I read the one above it. Okay, thank you, or one below,
Oh, yeah.
thank you.
And I
And
guess
I don't
another
do double
point to
sided.
make, whether it looks sophisticated or not, is not necessarily the point. It's the fact that it looks like a retail use.
Right.
It looks like retail in a sophisticated fashion, or it looks like retail along a highway business. And that was really the purpose of us pursuing this, and the zoning that we contemplated was, it's retail, it's retail, it's retail.
Why
Where
would
does
they
retail
be
belong?
allowed 2 signs?
2 signs? Well,
That's just an example.
yeah. I'm not
They don't apply to-
recommending,
And
They
it
don't
does say
apply
that
to
they have to
that.
comply with the sign code, Madam Chair.
Not more than 2 signs, it says. Number
It might
1,
be.
on M's number 1.
Correct. But number 3 does indicate they must comply with the town sign code pursuant to 330-200 through 210.1. So in the event our sign code only allows 1, that's what they're restricted to. And then just as a point of information, we have drive-throughs prohibited at the moment.
Yeah.
That's a comment that the town board, we have sent into the state, because as currently written, the regulations say that drive-throughs are at the discretion of OCM, and that they'll decide whether or not a drive-through is allowed. And so I can provide this board with a copy that of the letter the town board has written to OCM, asking them to change that regulation. They are required to respond to us, indicating whether or not they will make that change. So we're hoping that they do make that change,
To
because
prohibit
to prohibit
Yeah.
it, because obviously, the planning board is typically charged with deciding whether or not a drive-through is appropriate. And a drive-through is directly related to the time, place, and manner of a
Mhm.
use. And that is what they're allowing us to regulate.
Right,
So we're hoping that they take that out.
okay.
This is really helpful to see the imagery, and I think it could be also useful, given the, the constants that we have here, to plug it into GIS, to be able to see a map of what is left of available zones, just for the, to be
Sure.
able to look in the community.
I mean, I could pull up
Um,
GIS right now if you
mhm.
wanted to. I mean, but if you think about
Yeah.
where we have SCB, there's not a lot. If we think about where
Mhm.
HB is, we're talking County Road 39, on the flanks of Hampton Bays.
Yeah,
including
like if you
Mortimer,
pulled up
Bridgehampton.
GIS right now, could you just highlight those two zones? And I think it's useful, just to see that, right?
Yeah, I'm just
That
looking
it's a
for the
pretty
GIS
confined
thing.
area.
Sure. And then there's additional standards that although the zoning at its face says it's allowed here, because it butts a residential use, or if it falls within that 500 feet, or a park.
Right, so there's
So
minimal
it
allowances.
quickly, the number starts to dwindle, and to some extent, that was done intentionally. We didn't want to have 10 cannabis dispensaries in this community. The 1,000-foot setback, so if one ended up in Watermill in the highway business zone, that would probably be the only one in Watermill.
So the parking regulations would just be guided by the section of the code that it's in, like any retail
Mhm.
store.
Or am I? Apparently I can't talk and look at zoning at the same time. Okay, so here we have our VB in our downtown Watermill area. Again, this would not be permitted as we move east. Starting at Deerfield, we transition into HB to Scuttle Home, or just the edge of Scuttle Home. So it gives you an idea of that, this is an area that could theoretically have cannabis.
I'm thinking like just a litmus test, because obviously there's gonna be a lot of public attention to this,
Mhm.
that it could be good to, even if it's like a multi-page little packet, to have, sections that actually highlight the sections where could be allowable. I mean, I know that's a project, but I think when you're thinking about a fear-based response, it's
Mhm.
useful to, present the information really cleanly and clearly. And it's a little bit of a project, but.
Yeah, I mean,
shouldn't take too
given
long.
current staff issues,
Sure.
to some extent, it's nice to see what the applicants are gonna come into it. We're not gonna get a rush of 100 different applications for this. There's going to be a few. These people are struggling to find locations. This was also a reason why we transitioned from thinking about LI 40 into, again, retail. Because there isn't a lot of LI 40 in existence, and the existing LI 40 that may have had interest in this was increasing the price of their rent, realizing that they had an opportunity. So I have yet to speak to anyone in the industry that has a location secured.
Are you receiving a lot of public questions or feedback in your office?
I wouldn't call them questions, mostly feedback.
Okay. So that's again, just to reiterate, that's the type of, a little bit of extra work on the forefront to show someone, look, this is where it's allowed,
There
take
was
a look at the,
you had a map at the
if you
town
have
board
that.
Yeah, we did
meeting.
have a map.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah,
map at the temple.
so that's-
I do not have that map on hand, and
Easier.
I don't think I have L Drive access here. Do I? I could actually, let's see if I have it.
You could log out of there.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Is there a minimum square footage for these stores, or
Not-
maximum?
No, but I don't think I think that's somewhat dictated by the market. This is, I don't think we're gonna be looking at the Costco of cannabis, based off of product.
We don't allow those at that
Right.
largest store anyway.
I have a question for Kathleen. Is there a way to preclude these uses from applying in cases of non-conforming use, change of non-conforming use? I mean, it sort of hamstrings the ZBA. In other words, you have a automotive repair shop in a residential zone, and I want to change from one non-conforming use to the other non-conforming use. I want to bring in cannabis dispensary. Is there a way to structure the code where this would be a use that would not be allowed under that application?
Well, if you remember, the town board has now taken the change from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use under their purview.
Right.
We could, I mean, in the first instance, it would go to the town board for them to decide whether or not they would want to put a retail cannabis dispensary within a residential neighborhood. I guess we could write code in there if the
Is it
board is so
allowed
inclined.
under, is that illegal?
Well, I mean, you'd have to go through the threshold for a change from one non-conforming use to another, which as recently amended, trying to remember, Dennis, but it can't, there are parameters, and they have to show that it's a less intensive use
Right.
than that which was already there, and then that which is allowed. I don't know that you would ever be able to meet that threshold by putting a retail store within a residential zone.
Well, if it's a nuisance, I'm thinking these applications typically come in with nuisance uses, like an automotive
Sure, yeah.
transmission shop, and
Yeah.
and then there's noise and there's traffic, and
Yeah.
we just want to get rid of this, and here's the guy who wants to bring in a retail cannabis dispensary.
We could speak to the town board about amending that code and adding language to prohibit
To the
cannabis
extent that it
dispensaries.
could, I would see, because that's the one avenue where I see these uses coming in
Slipping
to
in.
residential zones, and if it can be somehow incorporated into the legislation.
Do we want to make that as a comment then? And
I mean, I would,
Would you, okay.
if you can list this use as,
Prohibited.
because it becomes problematic, a lot of times you'll have even members of the community who say this is such a nuisance use, please bring this dispensary in.
Okay.
There might actually be support, but if it's codified, it would sort of eliminate that whole discretionary aspect of it on the town board, so.
Okay, so we'll take, that's our one comment, and I guess, Kate, your comment, I think, should probably be taken into account, that we'd want a town board in the future should continue to.
Educate the public
Right,
in a,
okay.
in a clear way, to show the work that's been done, to research this, to, make appropriate decisions, and then, kind of what's left visually, I think.
You want to illustrate the potential sites?
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I
And
mean,
then,
it's not
Michael,
a
if there's any
legislative comment, but
change
more
from the
public
state
relations.
Mhm.
on distances, that we have the right to amend the distances.
Okay.
Mike, back to the
We
parking,
can't.
if I
We're
could.
locked into them.
Sure.
No, I just have one comment.
Sorry.
No, it's all right, I'm taking notes.
From what I've seen, in the press and even the comment you said, the one police chief somewhere said, have a porta potty or something. I would think these stores may be very busy, at least, the first wave of them may be different 10 years from now or something, but we talk about doing a traffic impact analysis of the roadway network is okay. Is there a way to request some kind of a demand for parking in a shopping center? If this is going to be a high-volume location,
I can make that as a comment.
yeah.
Does the state legislation talk about any limitations based on the economics of specific areas? No.
No, in fact, the whole goal of this program is to target those areas that have been justice challenged and that maybe have more socioeconomic disparities. So the state wants to foster putting these retail shops in those
Yeah,
locations.
kind of like liquor stores. Let's put them, in the areas where, to me, it's short-sighted, Where are we gonna see the pawn shops and the liquor stores? Bridgehampton? No. You're gonna see them in Flanders, Riverside. That's what we're gonna see.
Just before we leave that point, just because Tom had mentioned it, in that section E, there was a comment from the Hampton-based CAC that asked that be changed to a shall. The planning board shall request a traffic impact analysis versus the planning board may request a traffic impact analysis. So I don't know if this board has any strong feelings about a may
I
or
like that.
shall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd agree with
And if we
that.
could throw the word parking in there with roadway.
What about a shared retail space where a shop comes in and they want to take half a store and share it? I mean, is there any accommodation for that?
As I read the regulations, no.
You
I mean,
can't.
the license that's being issued by OCM is very specific to what they can sell there, what they can have there, so,
Is that all in that book?
yeah.
Is
There's
that
another
online?
one, there's actually two of them, yes, yeah, so there's a whole, the website is actually pretty user-friendly, to be fair.
What is it,
So,
Kathleen?
if you go to New York State, and you put in, let's see, it's at the bottom of this. It's MRTA, that's your Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act acronym. That has, a lot of tabs that are helpful. At the bottom, you can follow the state regulations, you can look at the comments that have been submitted, you can submit FOIL requests, and you can pull up the regulations.
Okay.
So,
New York State, MRTA.
MRTA,
Yeah,
I
okay.
think it's MRTA.com. This is there's actually two provisions that are out for comment right now.
I just only was thinking from a planning perspective.
Yes.
The question, because you already alluded to it, is, so in the HB zoning district, you can have a 15,000 square foot building, and in the shopping center, it's sort of unlimited. So the question, just, are we considering as part of the special exception standards, limiting the size of?
Yes.
I'm just,
Yes.
as he just alluded to, he said,
That's a
we're
very
not gonna
good-
get a Costco size,
But it can go
but
up
maybe
to
15,000 square feet, so I'm mentioning that as an
Yes.
issue.
So we can make that as a
Weed
comment.
world.
Right, and that impacts the parking. The bigger it
That's right,
is.
so that was my only planning related question that I posed
Yeah.
to the board.
Okay.
So you've got that? So how many points have we made?
6 points. Dennis's point, which I missed at first, so I was gonna rewatch it to get your point.
About the economic,
Mhm.
I don't know, getting back to
Yeah.
Kathleen was saying, does the state actually prohibit the town from assessing economic demographic where these sites are located? In other words, can the town, our town is pretty well mapped as far as income, demographic income. Is the town allowed to preclude these in certain areas?
I don't believe so, and I say that because, again, the entire function of this legislation and this initiative is to help people who have been, it's called justice challenged or, justice inclined, people who have been convicted of these crimes to then be able to have priority in getting licenses.
License, right.
And so to take away those spaces where they believe they might be able to open and thrive, to me, the state would say that we're preempted from doing that.
Well, the space is one thing, and the
Space-
licenses
yeah,
are
license, two
different.
different
You
things,
can secure a license and then open it in a space that's,
But we're allowed to regulate time, place, and manner, and I don't know that studying socioeconomic impact is going to qualify as something that they're going to say we're allowed to do, right? They want to occupy this field, they want to occupy the breadth of issuing licenses and where these dispensaries can be located, and I just.
well, that seems
my-
to run counter to the whole justice narrative, to flood the areas, we know where these are going to go, where rents are cheaper, where there's a proliferation of people who may be inclined to patronize these facilities, and let's put the
Well,
that's
not-
where the
Yeah.
liquor stores go.
Not necessarily, many of the inquiries we've received are about high-end boutique style
Yeah.
cannabis centers. Those are the calls we're receiving at this time.
Maybe now initially, but maybe it's my cynicism, this is gonna be a race to the bottom. And
Well,
we
we can
all
make
know
that-
where these are going.
And the only tool we have is the 1,000 foot
Right.
distance between shops.
What if the town could identify certain areas where there's a certain income threshold and say sites cannot be located within certain communities that may not meet certain income demographic,
That's rough to
income demographic? I think it would go a long way to even promote the justice narrative.
So you want that as a comment then?
I'm
It's
thinking the
tricky.
town might be
Yeah, I mean, there-
hamstrung about it.
There could be a
Very
counter argument
tricky.
to that, that now you're limiting people's ability to enter the market.
I think also that you have to remember that, marijuana is legal now, and the state is really going through
And
a
the
lot of
state-
effort to take the, to take the sting away from it, to take
Mhm.
the negative connotation away from it. So I hear you, and I think we'll kind of, you'll say what I'm saying is exactly why you want to, have those parameters, but I think by doing so, the state's going to say, but you're still attaching then like this negative connotation to marijuana, and we're trying to say it doesn't have to have that negative connotation anymore. It's legal. It's something that adults can use.
I think also,
Sort of like a wine bar versus a bar.
well, a talking point from one of the stakeholders that we're familiar with would be that by doing something like this, you're promoting the black market in that area versus allowing a regulated process to exist. When one is purchasing this product, it's highly regulated, it's tested, it's sealed. And if individuals lack access, well, they'll go to the markets they've been using for the last 30 years.
Can you?
Has the state informed you how many licenses that they have already issued, particularly for our area, and how many more they plan to give, or is it just an open-ended program?
They've discussed it.
And,
I think our region, which is from, I think, Western Suffolk County to Montauk, was initially, I believe, 22.
22 licenses.
And I think they doubled that number to 44.
So it's 44, and how long are those licenses good for? Is there a term?
I'm not sure.
No, I'm not aware of a term on the license, no.
Well, I
They
think
might have
that-
to reapply.
I think that's a question that I would like to ask.
Okay.
I mean, even salons where they have
Mhm.
operators there, they have their licenses posted, and they have to
Is there,
renew
How's
their
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 license
licenses.
does have to be posted.
Mhm.
That is in the
That's in the
regulations.
is there any?
A lot of these regulations do address the shop owner and how they have to
Operate.
identify and operate,
Yeah.
yes, which we didn't regulate because that's not our
Yeah,
purview, but.
inside.
So there's
Yeah.
a mechanism in the state to preclude surrogacy where people obtain licenses because they meet certain criteria, and then just have an
Sell it.
operator come in to operate under their license.
Yeah, there's a lot of scrutiny over who gets the license, and a lot of it is partnerships, but the person that has the contact with the justice system typically has to have 51% of ownership.
Right.
Yeah, but that really is left to the discretion of the state. They have promulgated those rules, and they are the ones reviewing those license applications.
Yeah, there's ownership and then there's active management. That's
I mean,
another
Probably
big
state liquor
loophole.
authority handles the same way, right? And then if there's like a complaint process where there's a violation, you can get it taken
Right.
away, and that's
Yeah.
the procedure, right?
yeah.
Could you just explain the process of what the procedure is within the town if someone, like they get their license from the state, right? And then they're gonna go through the process of,
So in the
Starting
first,
something
in the
up.
first instance, assuming they get a license from the state, if they want to open a shop in the town of Southampton, they have to, between 30 days and 6 months prior to opening or making the application with the state, they have to send a letter to the town notifying the town of a bunch of specifics, most notably where the location is, what their business looks like, where they want to, who's involved in it. And then the town has an opportunity to weigh in on that and to say whether or not we think it's, as a town board, whether the town board thinks it's a good idea, and why. And then we send that back to OCM. OCM has to respond. They may say, we've decided to issue it in any event, but, then OCM has to address, and with specificity, why or they did or did not follow the town's advice.
so could we put somewhere in here about a referral to planning board so that we could have a look at it and provide any feedback in regards to traffic or, community planning?
They will have to come here, it's special
They will
exception
have to,
session.
Yeah.
Special
Yeah.
exception.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll have
So
that
Thank you.
opportunity.
That, sorry.
Yeah,
So
that's why
that
I
was
wanted
the
to know,
first
like,
step
what's
with the
the
town board, right? So that,
backstop?
assuming they did get the license to continue to move forward, then once they identified a location,
Yeah.
then they come here and have to follow the special exception standards.
Right, okay. So there's a number of backstops and opportunity for public input and.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
what I was gonna ask you. It'll come back.
Sorry, Jackie. and we have, the town board has not yet, the letter has to go to the town clerk, and we have not yet got any of those letters.
Okay, I remember my question. You said 44 licenses
yeah.
were issued, not for
Conditional.
the East End, but for,
Western Suffolk County to Montauk.
so all of Suffolk County, Western
Mhm.
Suffolk to Montauk, everything. Anything, is it site-specific? I mean, did they say Southampton, you get 10?
No, it didn't say.
No.
So all 44 could potentially land here?
No, it's not how it's gone historically in other states.
But I don't, it's an unknown, so I don't think we can speculate. So I'm just
Yeah.
saying, 44 have been issued, state can increase that by another 44, depending on revenue, et cetera.
It's Riverhead, Southampton, and
Brookhaven.
Brookhaven, okay,
And then obviously it's available on the reservation as well.
right.
Right.
But so Western Suffolk,
Is Brookhaven
Is-
only?
well, that's not even Western.
No,
So-
it's
So is that,
central.
no Islip, no,
I don't think that.
Those
40
no
towns have opted
Huntington,
out.
no Smithtown.
They have
Right.
not opted in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the litmus test that I'm talking about, where it's a lot more work on the front end, but with the confines of the law that you have, you could say, well, only this many would fit within Southampton town, you know?
Except to like,
Based on-
if we're looking at this map, if I was to say one's in that SCB, well, that would most likely knock out the VB. Then we have the VB by the school, well, that's knocked out as well. I mean, it does
Yeah,
get
so
to a
there's maybe
smaller
too many,
number. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like we're getting really into. the
Do you
minutiae
have
here.
that? Do you have that?
Well, we're looking
base?
at a map here, and sadly, it's not
Well-
loading that well. But if you can see, the LI 40 zoning shouldn't be contemplated here. This is an older map. But these setbacks in orange and blue are setbacks from parks and community centers and schools and churches, et cetera. So you quickly begin to realize that although we're allowing an SCB, bear with me one moment. VB also shouldn't be on this map, but you end up with a lot less parcels than you think.
Right.
And now, if any of those parcels are abutting a residential property, they have to have a 100-foot setback, which might, again, so it's,
So Mike, did you actually map it?
Yeah,
I mean,
this-
are there yellow dots where these can possibly go? I
well,
don't
we
quite
have
understand
the
that.
negative space,
Right, it's
we're-
the opposite,
yeah.
which is good, yeah.
Like, if we're allowed in VB, which it's not, it would be this, this section. I mean, as of right now, based off our current zoning, it'd be very difficult to have a cannabis dispensary in Riverside. Just by, we don't have a lot of SCB there. I mean, I could look at another hamlet, but
And the villages within our town are not part of this.
Correct.
no,
None of
yeah,
them, yeah.
they're not part
None
of it.
them, yeah. It's also probably, I don't know if it's worth noting, but I mean, obviously, these locations are gonna be driven by the market, right? Driven by availability, by landlords who wanna rent
Yeah.
to these sort of establishments. And as we are starting to learn and understand a little bit more, we also understand that if a landlord doesn't own the building, if they have a mortgage on the building, banks will typically be hesitant to allow that lease because marijuana is still illegal federally.
Illegal, yeah.
Correct. So unless a landlord outright owns their building, we're hearing, I've heard from a couple of license holders after the town board meeting that they will not be renting to them because the banks will not back that business plan.
Right.
So just as an aside, that's
Mhm.
limiting too.
So as long as we have an opportunity in this legislation to amend it down the road, I mean,
Always,
that's,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
because a
always
lot of
to the
this new
extent-
legislation,
Yeah.
we look at a referral, we ask questions, but then the reality sets in when it really happens. And we really need the opportunity to go back and look at it again. I don't know that the planning board gets a second bite of that apple. I don't think so.
If it's 3:30, you'll always get that referral.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I hear you, particularly here as the state regulations continue to evolve.
Yeah.
It's very likely that we're going to have to make some
Tweak
amendments to
yeah,
this.
Yeah.
This is the first stab on it, very complicated, trying to do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's
And with
good
not a lot of
steps.
discretion based
No,
on
our
the
hands
state
are tied,
regulations.
yeah.
Which
Yeah.
we, again, I don't believe the town board anticipated in 2021, when they had the decision before them of whether or not to opt out.
Yeah. Oh, that happens so often,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we know
I think
it's
we have
a
some
community
pretty
because
solid
the
comments, though,
Shinnecock's.
to give
Yeah.
to the town
Okay.
board.
That's sort
To
of,
generate a report.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you'll generate a report, let us know. Thank you, Kathleen.
Do you
Good
want to
see
adopt
you.
it now?
Thank
or
you.
No,
Do
write
you want,
it
do you
up.
want to, we
Yeah.
might not have another opportunity to bring it before you do it.
When is the,
Well, can you email us?
Yes, I can email it.
I think
Okay.
it'll be April 11th.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay.
We don't have a meeting before April 11th.
You don't?
No. we're
Okay,
not
so,
meeting the 13th.
so, no, I'm not. If,
So they're gonna keep this open though, aren't they? I mean,
no,
the
that's a
town?
notice of adoption. So I think you would actually need to adopt it now, not adopt these comments now, and I will circulate afterward. We've
Well,
done that
I
in
wanna
the
make sure that
past.
the language in your report is correct.
You love the language in my reports.
I never do, Mike, you know that.
Michelangelo, can you
Come
come
back
back?
at the end of the
Yeah,
meeting.
yes, that's
Come
what I
back
was
to
just
Come
gonna
back at the
say.
end of the day. Come back later, and we'll
Really?
take, and we'll
Yeah.
adopt it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Do you want to write something up for this afternoon?
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Pretty screensaver.
Yes.
So Anthony, is Anthony here? Yes, oh, there you are.
He's right there.
I'm right here.
Page 10, number 1, Hampton Punquag.
Yes, let me just. One second. So this is Ponquag Avenue, East Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays, King Cullen Shopping Center over here. This is a shopping center. This is the senior center here, the community center.
Town-owned,
The
right?
town-owned, and this is the lot that it's on, in yellow. It's an existing lot, but the town is formalizing that through this process. So that's why we're here. We actually, this goes back to 2019 when they first submitted the application, but they had to get the health department approval. There was some things that we simply couldn't waive. But what I would say about this is, and I spoke to Jim Burke about this, but part of when they did this, all of the parking, cross-access, all those legal documents that were established as part of the PDD
Yeah.
remain in place.
They do.
And they were the part of the agreement when this was purchased by the town. So all those,
So the shared parking.
shared parking, everything.
Will stay in place.
everything will stay in place. And then that will be it.
So what was the rationale to carve out this piece?
I think because the town was renting the property at an
And now they
unbelievable
bought
high
it
cost, and they
from
bought
Lowe's.
it.
Yeah,
So it just, put it into their coffers and out of the.
right, so it is a separate parcel.
It is a
of the
separate
shopping
parcel
center.
already, yep.
You see any issues here, Anthony?
No, but the reason why I didn't do it last time is because my one issue is I wanted to make sure all the parking, public parking
Yes.
agreements were still in place, which is
And
the
they
reason
are.
why, and they are.
Anthony, right, so the area in yellow,
That was the
now
town.
town-controlled parking.
Yes. Well, it's town-owned property with a public parking agreement on there.
Anthony,
Or-
do you state that in here? Can
That-
you?
Let me, I will if I don't.
I think it's important.
Because on the resolution up here, I say the subdivision is designed to formalize the town's purchase of the existing town hall annex and senior citizens building with no additional development, no changes to the shared parking and
Oh,
cross-access agreements.
right.
As a result, the planning board finds the proposed subdivision does not jeopardize the interest of public health, safety, and welfare, and therefore is consistent with the subdivision waiver provisions pursuant to 292-18 and 292-44B1 of the code. And then I go on to recommend waiving the public hearing, and then recommend approval of the maps. I do ask for the Mylars and the paper prints, because I actually don't know what the county does in situations like this, so we'll just stick with our process, and if they have something easier for them, God bless.
So it's only town-owned, town-controlled.
Yes. Well, it's
Now,
town,
in the sense, could you consider it a municipal lot? Like the one behind the post office?
Yes.
Or the one behind
yes,
Candy Kitchen?
100%. I believe absolutely 100%, that was the part
I don't know
of.
if the entirety is a municipal lot, but everybody who uses a municipal building will have free access across the entire portion of the lot.
And what about maintenance? Because it's all connected.
That's why
with
I'm saying I
other-
don't know if it's a municipal lot. I would have to look and
Yeah.
see how.
Well, so what I think to that point is whatever the PDD legislation at the time that created this, including the cross-access agreement, who's responsible, must remain in place.
Okay,
as
so it's
they
all
go
taken
through.
care of
Parking.
anyway.
With shared park, yes, the shared parking
For the buildings
agreements,
that are on that
100%
development.
are in place, yep. So it may not be a municipal parking lot, but the shared parking
Shared
agreements
parking,
are
yeah.
still in place.
Great.
Any other questions?
I'll move it.
Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Evergreen Fields,
Yeah,
page
so this is,
14.
This is the one Old Country Road, here up in East Quogue, board members. I'm actually gonna come up there as a matter of fact.
Is there a pass out?
There was a
Yeah.
report of assent, but.
Yeah, because it was not,
Changed, right? You changed the,
well, wasn't in the packet, then it came, and
Then
then
it
it
came,
came,
yeah,
then it came
you know.
again.
Thank
And,
That's about half about what happened, I'm sure, but,
and I was having issues with my laptop yesterday, and I kept getting the packet as your attachment, and I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Oh, no.
Then I realized that my internet went down.
that's why I decided, let me just come up here. I knew that one was an issue. So, the board members, we looked at this,
is that odd shape piece?
yeah, if you look, the long strip to the west there is vacant, that, would have a common driveway up to the bulk of the property where they would have 3 lots. That second shaded lot is a lot that has an existing residence on there. When the planning board first looked at this pre-application, this is the 4th one that we're looking at here, they wanted the lot line change as part of this application to just correct an encroachment with that existing residence. And so what happened was we had multiple plans that came in with this, okay? We had a yield plan that shows 3 lots. Then we had a PRD plan, okay, that showed 3 lots with 50% of the area of the property encumbered by conservation easements. That in and of itself doesn't qualify as a cluster because to have a cluster plan, you have to have a separate open space parcel, so you couldn't count easements on a property. I should say in certain instances you can, but this wouldn't be one of them, okay? And then I was trying to figure out the other map, and the other map was what they call the preliminary map. Similar to this one, and this was one that has 30% of the lot area encumbered in easements on the property. And this was the map that the planning board looked at their 3 other pre-app reports. So I sort of refocused on this one, only because this is what the board looked at previously. And so I think what the issue was, for a cluster plan, there's no adjacent open space. There's the Trails Advisory had no recommendations for trails. So the question is, can we accomplish what we want environmentally without a cluster plan? And I think that's what the rationale was, at least in the reports that I looked at, said it was a compromise between the 2 plans. We could preserve from the adjacent properties, because if there was ever going to be anything that would be preserved, it would be somewhere over here.
Plus it's APOD. And
It's APOD. This property's also been largely cleared with some regrowth. It goes way back, so you could see
Oh, I
that
see.
property is cleared.
Yeah.
So, on balance, my thought was, is the town, then you gotta go through the thing, does the town wanna take this property? Will they, you know what I mean? So I thought that maybe the planning board's first 3 pre-application reports were probably correct in that I would recommend the 30% of the property being encumbered with conservation easements, but it's not a cluster plan then. It's still a standard plan, but
Meaning that they don't get setback relief.
they don't get setback relief. Yeah. So that was my rationale. And so then I have my little report here, which quite frankly,
Who's the applicant? Is he here?
Randy's here.
Randy.
He's doing a great job.
He's staying
I
quiet.
appreciate that. So actually, let's just go to the page, let's go to page 4. We'll talk about the referrals that came in. The Office of Fire Prevention, which is recommending a fire hydrant at the end of the very long driveway. So that was the big thing with that. Conservation Board came in with their comments. They always prefer the larger 50% preservation. But they would like to see some preservation, and obviously they
So
were.
why didn't we do 50%?
It was a compromise between whether or not a cluster plan was really warranted in this case, given the inability to connect to any other open space, versus what really needs to be protected on this property, and can we do it in the form of easements as opposed to an open space parcel that'll be presumably dedicated to the town if they were interested, that doesn't connect up to any other town open space. So that was the rationale for the 30%. At least, again, I'm going back on 3 other reports that were done. And so that's that. We did referrals, fire prevention came back with comments, Conservation Board came out with comments, which are in the report. They're pretty standard comments from the Conservation Board.
Ain't the fire, it's, how do you get a hydrant? They're recommending a yard hydrant?
Well, let's see here, they are recommending,
Their referral.
at the end of the common driveway.
So that's down on the road.
14, they're asking for one in a common driveway. I don't,
I mean, the water authority won't send a water main up the common driveway. You can get service lines.
you get service lines, so the question is it maybe something other than,
Yeah.
like a cistern or something that, you know, I don't know how much water pressure you really ultimately need
Yeah.
to have a hydrant, so that's a very good question, actually.
Yeah, to have a hydrant.
I was confused whether they wanted the hydrant at the end of the driveway on the road?
Or back there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, all the way up
It
to the very
says-
end of it. It says at the end of the common drive, which
At the end of the common
says
driveway.
all the way
I
up to the
don't
very
know.
top.
So it's
Way
inland.
down.
It's inland.
I think they're gonna run into a problem with the water. so-
well, I think what we could do then, Dennis, is, you know, would say this was the, you know, per the recommendation, you know, the planning board will, on a final application, re-refer to the agencies, like we normally do,
Yeah.
and see what comes back, you know, only because this is what they recommend, and
This is a
I rarely ever, you know, contradict them, but maybe we'll note here in Dennis that this
To
could be an
clarify.
issue
Yeah.
with the water main going
To
up there. And to
clarify the
clarify.
recommendation.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
So anyway, let me just go back there. And Trails Advisory didn't have any, anything. So recommendations, again, recommending the preliminary plan with 30%. I think it provides the necessary environmental protection while giving some reasonable building envelopes. And as you could see, the building envelopes aren't particularly large to begin with, so, 3. So as you can see, they're fairly limited to begin with. And number 2 is just the point that if you were doing a PRD plan, this is what the requirement is. The board's not gonna go with that, but that is the requirement. Compliance with the town engineer, there was just a lot of common driveway requirements, all the typical, you know, coefficient information, the speedies requirement, the SWIP requirement,
I'm assuming well, there'll be 3 legal flag lots, there will be 1 driveway.
common driveway.
Yeah.
Which I don't say in here. Well, we'll
I
get
was
that,
conf- I
that's
was
a
con-
rare that I miss a
I
common
was
driveway. right?
confused.
Go
I
ahead.
think it was listed in one of the plans, but not all of them.
Gotcha. Number 4, the property is in the Central Pine Barrens, even though it's largely cleared, the applicant should submit demonstrating compliance with the CLUP standards, which we also go through at the time of a final application. This will be an unlisted action under SECRA, and we've been asking all the applicants to submit the long forms, it's just better.
Yes.
6 talks about the long-eared bat, so we will always impose a condition or a covenant that puts them on notice with the DEC. 7 talks about the limits of clearing. And so what'll happen is at the final, I'll go back out there, verify all the clearing, and make sure that the map at the time of final is correct so we can impose the proper clearing restrictions as may be applicable since a lot of the property's been cleared. We will limit the fertilized vegetation to 15%. Number 9 just talks about verifying the calculations, because if you look at the various maps and don't, and Randy and I have looked at the numbers are a little bit confusing. You gotta take a calculator out and really add them up, so we're gonna have that fixed. Number 11 just talks about transfers to be in conflict with the flag lot for proposed 2. I was looking at an older map, so to be quite honest, number 11 could come out. 11, it doesn't show that problem on here. 12 talks about the requirements for a SWIP, anything over an acre of disturbance, obviously. 13, a single common driveway and utility easement shall serve all 3 lots in the subdivision. I note in here it says conservation easements and driveway, because I think on one of the lots, it shows the flag lot, but it shows the easement going down to the bottom. I don't know yet if that's okay or not. It's not the driveway or not the flag that's gonna serve the lots in the subdivision. But whether or not we could actually have the easement in there, I don't know yet, so.
It shouldn't be in the easement.
Yeah, so I think I'm just, I think we'll, I'm just gonna note that it appears that there's a conservation easement in the driveway, and this may be,
Anthony, what about archaeological?
it's not in the archaeological sensitive area. Oh, it is in the archaeological sensitive area, sorry. So an archaeological
So
is,
16.
yeah, I'll put that in there.
Okay, 1A.
It's 1A, 1B,
1A,
actually.
1B.
1A would be.
So 14 talks about the hydrant issue, so we'll get clarification. 15 is the health department, well, I'll put 15, I'll do the requirement for the archaeological report, phase 1A and 1B, and then the health department approval for this.
Anthony, can I circle back to number 6?
Yeah.
Where are we envisioning going with that?
With the bat thing?
Well, does the DEC have the ability to set windows of clearing?
Yes, that's what it is
They
primarily.
already did.
It's the
And how would
clearing.
I can't think of an application where we've imposed that. Does it apply to all lots?
It doesn't. We've been doing, because it's popped up more recently, as you know, we've been seeing
Right.
it a lot more. So what I've been noting is that we've been putting a notation on the subdivision map, and I believe a covenant that says this property is located within, and the applicant will be subject to any New York State DEC permits for clearing, or, I don't know exactly
It's a
what the language
particular
is.
period that you can clear.
It's a
Right,
particular
it's like
period
from
that you can
November
clear.
to January.
Who administers that, the DEC? So you go into file for a building permit, what happens?
You raise a very, very good question. What we can do, on the final, now that you raised the question at number 6, is perhaps,
It's
can
more
we
than a
require?
map.
When we have a multi-lot project, which we won't name, we have the ability to, we can incorporate that into the approval process. But here we're creating single and separate lots capable of building permits other than.
You
having
could put in
happened-
a covenant that says prior
covenant.
to the issuance of any building permits, the applicant shall submit a permit or something from the
The
DEC
DEC.
demonstrating they're in compliance with it.
DEC issue permit?
They issue,
You're not gonna issue a permit, you'd have to like put in some type of either affirmation or some verification that you're in compliance with the DEC rules as it relates to clearing during the time of the long-eared bat.
So they'd have to submit to
They'd have to
us some
submit to us if they
verification.
did something prior
Well,
to
that's
the
better than
release of a
nothing.
building permit.
Yeah, that's better than nothing.
what's your thought?
Okay, this is a first. We always like firsts.
It's interesting because the way it works with the DEC is it's not a permit that they issue. If you're within the area, they just tell you, here's
tell you.
your period that you could clear. If you want to do anything beyond that, now you have to come to the DEC and ask for a taking permit or whatever the actual
Right.
language is
But
to
the-
go beyond.
But the
then
question is, who supervises it?
The DEC.
DEC.
They're around?
Do you want me to,
Does the applicant
they
have any
skulk
thoughts on this?
around?
I like your idea where I think you provide affirmation.
Randy, you have to come up and give us your name for the record.
Have a
You
seat.
can sit.
Birthday, favorite color. Randall Whitebrook, 36A Montauk Highway Squad. I think a good idea would be to provide some sort of an affirmation with your building permit application, stating that this is the window of opportunity for clearing. So that way you're putting the building department on notice. I'm reviewing it during this time. I can issue the permit now, or I have to withhold it. So this is probably a good conversation to have with the building department, to be honest with you.
I was gonna say, because here's what's gonna happen.
Because this
People
is
in
the
this
third
zone,
application I have.
once they find out what their
They're gonna
zone,
clear.
they're gonna go in and do their clearing, which they're allowed to do, and then they're gonna come in and file their subdivision application.
What about like
Okay.
having to notice for clearing, and provide an affidavit that you noticed? Because then, like, in the templated letter for noticing, it could say like, and per the DEC, it's only allowed during this time, so then you're relying on the neighbors to kind of like watch over that, because they're right there.
Yeah, but you have to put that on the applicant, which is then making the building department aware. So I don't know, that's probably for a covenant thing, because you file covenants with
I
your
would do
application.
a deed restriction, that you show it up on the deed, you make it a notation on the map, and
But-
having them sign off like you do, like you're aware of the driveway provisions of town.
Right,
You-
right, right.
You just do the same thing, and you say you're aware and acknowledge that the DEC, the long-eared bat window as enforced by the, because we don't have an enforcement.
No.
So, I mean, they can violate one of our covenants, and then we can say
I
they're
don't know about a
violating.
deed restriction though, because that's like a cloud on title. What if that period changes
Right.
over time? What if the period changes over time?
Or is there after duly adopted? It's always promulgated by them. So whatever the, law of the day is the law of the day.
so maybe
We
what-
can work it out.
So maybe what I'll say, Dennis, to that point is the planning board, we'll put a note here, you know, the planning board, or the something about language will have to be at the time of the final application included as a CNR or a map notation that addresses the DEC clearing matter.
We
you
did
know.
it as a CNR on other ones. We said that they understand that they need to comply with that, and we made it a CNR. That's how we did it.
There's
But
still
it's,
no, like,
I know exactly what you're saying.
it still doesn't allow, like, I just want to bring it up again, because I think it's like citizen policing then, right? If you have to let your neighbors know, I'm about to do something, they're gonna notice, right? And then those neighbors are wondering if you're in compliance, they've already received a letter to that effect. And then if they see that it's outside of those bounds that you've been required by law to notice them of, they
Yeah,
can
but we
then
typically don't
report it
notice
to the
neighbors
DEC.
about
No,
anything
no,
once
no.
an approval's done, you know?
Right, yeah.
It just makes it, so, I understand it's an issue, it ties into the clearing in general, that we also have this,
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about, we've got conservation easements, and we've also got fertilization limits.
Mm-hmm.
How often do we get overcleared property?
All the time.
Well, again, if you have to notice your neighbors that you're about to be clearing and what the regulations are for that,
the other
then you'll
side
get,
of it is,
it'll stop it.
upon
Stop
verification,
recording.
we could, I mean, I know it's a DEC, the permit thing, but, can we impose the clearing limitations in the period?
Now,
No.
What do you
the
mean?
building department, I'm sorry, the building department does have a mechanism to require periodic survey updates. So where's the window? They cannot clear between March 1 and November 30, is that it?
It's something, yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
No,
I
we've
mean,
imposed that
they
on
can
Lewis Road,
require,
the clearing.
the building department has the ability to require to have the survey updated as of March 1, showing
That's
the
an
clearing,
interesting one.
you know, and
Does the building department look at all clearing, all building permit applications with
No.
the window of the
No.
long-eared bat? I mean, I think that's really a conversation for the building department.
Yeah.
And they should post it, they should have it in their regs, I would say. You know, we're not gonna issue permits for this during this particular period of time.
Well,
Well,
the
it
permit is
addresses
good.
the
It's
long-eared
good.
bat issue as well as like these overclearing, plans that are coming in,
the permit's good for
revegetation
2
plans.
years.
Well, look, you know, the thing is, we know it's in the endangered, you know, area, it's noted in there. Let's see what I could come up with, you know, at the final, since it's such a pre-application
Maybe
at this
talk to the
point.
building department.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Work with Christine for the language,
Yeah, for sure.
and
This is pre-submission.
and
Yeah,
also
pre-application, yeah.
include Jeff in, because he's got all these overclearing situations.
Yeah,
so-
I'm sure that.
I mean, if we revise that whole clearing plan that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
that
We were
something like
talking
this-
about an administrative problem.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
No, the issue's noted, Dennis, it's valid. And that's all I have.
More aggravation.
That's okay.
No, important.
Thank you.
Okay.
Big bucks for it.
I'll move to adopt the
Thank you.
Motion by Dennis, second by George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
There's right there.
With my items, yeah.
Claire, you've got Mill Creek?
She's gonna have.
Milton Heights,
We don't have a page. No,
Page
no,
It's
18.
18.
page 18.
Oh, page 18, okay.
There's a resolution, I freshened up the resolution in there.
So we-
Yeah, what
look
was
at
in
this
the-
one, Claire, the one you're
Yeah.
Yeah,
distributing?
the one,
Okay.
the one in the packet was not complete.
So there's
I
two
take notes.
actions with this one. Actually, I didn't realize there was 2 maintenance bonds, or 2 bonds associated with the subdivision. This was a Jackie Fenlon and Nancy handled it initially, so.
Okay, so this is the release of
Cleaning it
the 2
up.
bonds?
Yes, so let me get to the page like you are. Just to show you the aerial. So the subdivision is almost fully built out. There's a couple house lots left. But the road is in good condition if they did all the work. So this would be the release of the performance bond and reduce the amount for a maintenance bond for 1 year, which is typical with roads. So that's the resolution that you have in front of you. The second part, which is, if you flip it over, is that there's a bond being held for performance, and that was for revegetation of this front part of this lot to screen it off and to make it more natural.
Is that a lot or a buffer?
It's a buffer, it's a town-owned parcel,
Uh-huh.
and it was just gonna be revegetated, because you can see there was like an access way at one point on this
Yeah.
area, but this has all been revegetated.
I thought the last time I drove up there, and I haven't been around for the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
They still had the sign for the development on that parcel.
Yeah.
On this parcel,
Yeah, on the one on the road.
They do, they have a temporary.
sign here, is that
yeah.
right, or the sign? Do you remember which side it
What
was?
side
It's
is
it's on the far side of the road.
the east
going
side or the
north.
west side?
Do you remember east side or west side?
East side or west side? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. So make sure that's taken down, right? Yeah.
think
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
the-
like I
I think
said,
it's the east
I've been
side.
out of town for the last 3 weeks, so
Mhm.
it could, but the
I
last
think it's
time
the
I
east
saw
side.
it.
Okay. That'll be a condition, I can just add that at the end of the resolution.
And so the lot behind it is a development lot?
The lot, this is a development lot technically.
That's fine. So
But
there are
I
two-
think this person owns it because he wants his view kept, so.
Okay, and then, so there's one more to be developed?
Yeah, one more here to be developed. So, the road is in good condition, it's recommended for a maintenance bond for a period of 1 year. That's the first resolution. And the second resolution is to release a bond that's being held that was established in 2018, and that was for the revegetation of this area. The split rail fence, which is installed along the buffer here, so there's no encroachments. And then the monuments for the entire subdivision. So that's all been done. So I'm recommending that that bond be released too. Typically, sometimes you'd want a maintenance bond for the landscaping, the revegetation portion, but it's been 6 months already. It'll be another year with the maintenance bond, so I don't know if you want to have a maintenance bond for that revegetation or not. We'd have to get an estimate if you did on this case.
It's important that it be revegetated, right?
It's
The one on the
been
road.
revegetated, it's whether to be, you want a maintenance bond.
Maintenance.
But we'd have a maintenance bond already in the road for an additional year, so we can
So
make
we
sure
can-
that it's still in
Okay.
place if you just want to release it.
So you want both on this one resolution, Claire?
Yeah, I'm gonna add that the performance bond associated with the veg, the monuments, and the fencing be released, because all that work's been done. Okay?
All right, great.
So one resolution for both, is that good?
Motion by Kate, second by Dennis, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay.
Number 4?
Number 4
All right.
is
Well, that's that store.
Yeah, but this is gonna be an extension of the action deadline
Oh.
until
Howard, the
April
irrevocable-
20, yep.
This is an action deadline, doesn't say.
It's an
Is it an action
extension.
deadline?
Yes, it is, sorry, Jackie. Action deadline, and then we're gonna do an extension of that until April
Okay.
27th.
To April 27th.
Yes.
Okay, motion? Motion. By Kate, second by Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Claire Loaves and Fishes,
And that's page 24. And I have a newer version of the reports. Since I issued the report on Friday, I talked to the town attorney. We got some clarification on the ZBA variance. And upon consultation, the ZBA town attorney agreed that it is specific for a project, a ZBA decision, it references a plan. So a modification in this case, or this is a new application, would go back to the ZBA for clarification and
Okay.
a decision on the project. So this is, otherwise it's the
This
same
re-
report.
this replaces, yeah.
Exactly. And in addition, there were some public comments that were received, and I included those comments. They're under the comments received during the provided 30-day written comment period. Do you want me to read them in the record?
sure.
Okay. New application significantly different. Application must go back to the ZBA, especially with regard to the 50-foot transition rear yard buffer. There were previous covenants for landscaping and conforming lighting. Retail uses spend less time on site and will cause a steady flow of traffic. Property is advertised for sale. Thorough traffic and environmental review is required. Identify type of retail use and details of residential use. Support a greater buffer to the northern property and relocate the residents to the north and relocate the parking to the south of the residents. So, otherwise, it was the changes that we had discussed at the last application. And then under 4 for the variances, the last couple sentences have been modified. Upon consultation with the town attorney, variances are individual to the project and reference specific plans. If changed or modified, the application would have to go back to the zoning board of appeals for determination. If you wanted me to add any additional language, I could discuss.
Because the original, you said it was gonna go to the building inspector too.
And we
Usually
looked
with
at-
use, yeah.
We
and
looked at
Christine-
that, there's no provision in the code for it to go to the chief building inspector. That's not something that he would weigh in on at that point.
That,
Planning would take a
that was
position.
that was my question.
Yeah,
So we got a clarification on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just seemed like an awful lot of power in one person.
So we're talking about the buffers?
Yeah, buffers. Planning is requesting a review of the parking design to increase the rear buffer.
Okay, I have a question about the residents. Carl, do you want to come up?
Good afternoon. Carl Benicos for the applicant.
Carl, so I had we talked a lot about the buffers, we talked about that little statuary center, parking, but we didn't talk about the residential building itself. Can you talk a little bit about that? It is a 6-bedroom house.
Are you talking about the specifics of the build or intended use of it?
Yeah,
or-
intended use.
Yeah, it's going to be used for housing for staff
Staff housing?
Staff housing,
Staff
that's
it
right.
for.
Strictly a residential use. Yeah.
For
Loaves and
for the
Fishes?
staff of Loaves and Fishes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's her intended use, but it is a single-family residence, so
But
that
my-
use could change.
But my question is, it's not going to be used as an extension of the inn that they have on their property?
No, not at all. That's not the intent. And if it was, if like a bed and breakfast, we'd have to come for special exception approval for
You'd
that.
have to come back for that.
That's right.
Claire, do we want to put anything in this report about that?
We could. So you want to say something about the residents? I don't have a residence here
No, it's
yet,
not
right?
referenced at all. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, so you want to say the residents, it's a 6-bedroom,
Is intended for staff housing. Do we have any requirements for that, staff housing?
Yeah.
No.
Is there a reason you want to include that? I just don't know.
Well,
the
we've covered
relevance.
everything on the property but that building.
Okay.
So when I read this, I thought, well, gee, we're missing a piece.
Sure.
So I think we need to reference it.
I think that's fine, that's the intent, but I don't think it would be, we would want it, a covenant that it'd be limited to that, because who
Didn't
knows
say
down
that,
the road.
but we'll
Okay,
just- Yeah.
that's fine.
So in other words, then you could revert it back.
To just a single-family residence.
well, it would always be a single-family residence.
Yes,
So I'm
it
saying,
starts
it's-
out that
what I'm
way.
saying is, we don't want to commit in perpetuity that it's staff housing.
Right.
That's it. No. But that is the intent right now, absolutely.
On the public comment summary, the third bullet, additional parking proposed, I don't remember the context of additional parking. I know we talked, and it's in here,
It
trying to
meets-
create a bigger buffer
Sure.
and moving the parking around, but I don't remember additional parking.
There's no additional parking proposed beyond what is required. There was, we're asking because of the cross-access that we be afforded 2 extra spaces.
Right.
But no additional parking is proposed. I think maybe additional to the previous application is
I think
perhaps.
that those comments reference the previous application, do they not?
Oh, maybe that's,
It
Well,
may
that
be
was the
additional in
comment.
reference to the previous application.
okay, maybe
perhaps.
that's.
Which
that's-
was-
okay.
At the hearing, they just said that additional parking is proposed. I mean, they didn't say context compared to what, or that was just what their
Yeah.
comments was, so I put it in.
Okay.
If you recall, the applicant originally wanted to do this as an amendment. So I think in the context as it was originally presented was as an amendment. But as you know, the board wanted this as a new application.
Right.
So nothing is additional from what was originally presented, at this point, what was originally presented when we filed the application.
Okay.
And so the sanitary flow is all okay?
It is conforming to what was approved one time before this, 777 gallons, was with the health department, so.
Have you been to the health department?
No, we haven't. That process is, we've retained an engineer to start that process, and I think the application is going to be very soon. But obviously, we'll need that before we can get our
Yes.
final approval.
So do we want to say that, to comply to that? I mean, that's a prior application. It's not this application.
Well, I just give the history under the two sections, under 2. And I say that the health department denied any increase in flow, so they would have to comply with the 777 gallons.
Previously granted, that's what my point is.
Right, so under SECRA, do you want to say that? It's on the plans. The plans show 777 gallons per day, so.
And I don't want to muddy the record anymore, but the most recent iteration before this required credits to be brought on site.
That's why you didn't develop it, right,
Yeah.
that way.
This one does not.
So why are we using that number? That's my only question.
That is the on-site number, the
That-
7.7.
Current,
Current.
Yes.
okay.
I just wanted to get a history of what stopped the previous project from going forward, and that was the
Okay.
gallons.
I mean, I don't think that's necessary, because that does muddy the water. You know,
Well, it's a SECRA issue. It's an environmental issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so then you will look at SECRA at the next step. Okay.
okay, any other questions? Carl, any?
That's it.
I'll move it.
Okay, so we're going to adopt the pre-submission conference report by Dennis. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Second by Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. CVS, Claire?
Yes.
Is this the traffic?
This is traffic. So, let me get you to the point. The next
30.
page 30. This is CVS. This has been an ongoing project that was submitted prior to even COVID. But in November, we received a updated traffic report based upon a plan, and the plan is attached, which indicates cross-access between the subject property and the property to the east, which just on the face of it is a good plan in that it causes circulation, you can get to a light from the different sites, and providing the shared and access will hopefully, improve the traffic for
Is
the
that in
property.
place?
The applicant's been asked and has secured a preliminary agreement with the neighbor to do this. So, based upon that plan, they provided a traffic report. You hired a traffic consultant, which is rated by us, and he is here.
Come up, Ray.
He provided a report, just comments on the traffic study, and the applicant's traffic consultant is also here, so we
Okay.
can
Well, let's hear from Ray.
find this.
How are you?
Hello,
Hi,
nice
Ray.
to see you all again.
Is it raining?
It's off and on,
There was there were big drops when I came in.
yeah, and then it stops and it resumes after a while. Okay, so I don't know if you have my memo in front of you.
It's
do.
here,
Yes,
yes,
two-page.
it's in the packet,
Yeah,
yeah.
two comments, actually.
Yeah,
The first one is pretty straightforward. First of all, you all know that Montauk Highway is maintained by the county, so anything, we had suggested could be done would have to be approved by the county. The county would have to agree with it. The first one just talks about accident history in the eastbound direction, because a lot of the traffic going to this change in development at this site is going to be coming from the west. It's going to be heading eastbound on Montauk Highway, making a right turn. At that point, Montauk Highway loses a lane, because there's that second lane east of 24, and it drops.
yeah.
There was a warning sign that says the lane drops, but, the thought here was there was a good number of accidents occurring there, which are merge-type accidents.
That's right, it's Springfield.
Just
Yeah,
before
right
you
before
get
Springfield.
to, is it
What's it called?
Springfield?
It's
Yeah.
Springville.
Springville.
Yeah.
I have the same problem, it's spring something,
Massachusetts.
right?
So it's the stretch between 24 and Springville.
Right.
that you're-
Yeah,
You have two through lanes, and then
And then
that
it merges.
right
One
lane
lane, right.
becomes a right
Yeah,
turn
turn
lane.
lane
So
into
you have to
Springville.
get out of it, and there are some merging accidents there, which probably is because of that, even though there is a warning sign. So what
Are we still gonna have a curb cut from Montauk Highway into that?
Yeah, the plan
Yes.
shows a curb cut
Yeah.
on the eastern end.
With a right turn going on.
That's a combined
Okay.
entrance.
Yeah.
So you
For
don't,
Hamlet
you don't
Green to
have
this
to make
site.
the right turn on Springville to get into the CVS.
No, you could do
right
it
now
from
you don't
Montauk.
have to make a right turn.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to confirm.
So, so what that first comment's talking about, how about putting a sign like this? It shows the two lanes, it's a warning sign, it's black
Yeah.
and white. Ironically, or coincidentally, on the northbound,
Springville.
Springville, now you got me
Yeah.
confused. On northbound Springville,
They
there is
have
one
that.
of these signs
Yeah.
showing
Yeah.
which how the lanes, I think it'll be helpful in maybe preventing some
On the
merge
eastbound side
access.
of Montauk Highway?
So this would be on the
you're
eastbound side, yeah, over the sidewalk probably, because it's not that wide, it's only two lanes there,
talking- Right,
because there's no left turn lane at that.
funny, because it
junction.
merges and then it kind of splits again a little bit.
Yeah, so this
yeah.
would probably help get people, this one might have a I mean, it's a second sign, so it's
And where is this sign gonna be? Is it on the ground or is it
yeah,
up in the?
it's on the ground.
Okay.
Now, overhead would be
Yeah, yeah.
expensive and
Yeah.
unsightly, and having it on the ground, like there already is one on Springview.
Bill,
Springville.
Bill.
Springville, I'm gonna write
Like
it.
Hooterville.
Bill.
Ray, typically from the intersection, how far back? I mean, there's the bar, the big, then there's the ice cream, what is it? Murphy's?
This should go at exactly where the right turn lane begins. So that.
Oh, right at the right,
Right
so,
by
Yeah,
that
as-
Sulin
Right,
restaurant.
right where it becomes an exclusive right turn lane. So maybe where you have the first right turn arrow.
should
on
be
the
further
pavement.
away
See,
so
by-
people can make plans to,
I believe this goes right at the point of that lane
Okay.
becoming a right
Oh, I
turn
can
lane.
Zoom in.
It's very,
Have the traffic
you know, you
lanes.
make that,
make the
you're coming
left.
south on 24, you make a
Coming from the
left, you've
diner.
got two lanes,
Yeah.
and then it merges, and then it splits up
Opens
again.
up again, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
very
okay, yeah.
strange.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
I forget it merges, yeah.
Where's
Yeah, you can
that
Yeah, you
bill?
have the merge.
So this
That's
is the
right.
intersection, and this, of course, the line is going right through it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they,
But it's right here,
Right where your
so
cursor is by
Oh.
that driveway there.
Yeah.
Oh, here.
Or actually further east.
It
where you
starts
see-
here.
where the
You see
white
the
car
word
is.
only, that's where the sign should go. The
Just
first,
past the, just when you get past the parking.
I think
when
right
you
about
enter
where your
the-
cursor is.
Yeah, right? Because I see the dashed line here.
Yeah.
It starts right here. So here, so that's an open site. You could put it right here. This is
Yeah.
Gemelli and
Yeah.
the bar.
The Jamelis, yeah.
Now,
Ice
we
cream.
would
Ice
ask
cream.
the county to do this, or get permission for the developer
If you just
from
forward
the
these,
county?
these comments to the county, they could take a look at it and say, okay,
Right,
you know, and then we could mark up the plan
can
and show
ask.
where we'd go and,
right.
yeah.
Okay, what's the second one?
Second one's a little longer, and it talks about parking generation. The applicant's traffic engineer did a very thorough job on the entire study, both the intersection traffic generation, the shared access, talking about the shared access, the location of the access points, assigning the traffic around the site, between the two sites, now that they're gonna be connected, shared access. So the parking, they needed to generate, or estimate the parking for both the CVS site. So they actually did something in 2019, in August, where they looked at existing parking, which was, 2019 was good because it was pre-COVID, so at least it's not 20 or 21 where you might be concerned about some of the information. So they looked at the parking generation based on existing, actually counted cars there during various times of a Friday and a Saturday, I believe. Saturday had more parking, so that was the critical period. And then they estimated the traffic for Hamlet Green using a shopping center use. So I don't think I need to, the parking generation report's a little difficult to get through, but it's an online
That's
thing.
why we have you.
Yeah,
So
well.
explain it to us in English.
Yeah, well, I'll explain it and then have some comments. But I'll just hand these out just quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is maybe too much information.
We'll pass them down.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So it used to be a book that was the stat. So you now go online and do it, which is good. But just on that graph there, I highlighted, this is the first page, and this represents the number that they use to generate parking. So what you do is on the left-hand side where I highlighted, you see in yellow, 820 shopping center. That's the ITE land use classification for a shopping center, Hamlet Green. What they did is they looked at a non-December period, so they didn't look at a holiday period. The independent variable, that's the unit on the bottom of the graph where it says X equals. So you see numbers on the bottom of the graph there, like 1,000, that's really thousands, 1,000 square feet. So that's a big shopping center. Most of the shopping center, you see all the points at the bottom of that graph where the zeros are. Most of the shopping centers are small that they analyzed, and that data is all clustered together at the bottom lower left of the graph. So what you do is you enter the square footage in the bottom where I wrote Hamlet Green, 17,579 square feet. And then on the right-hand side is what they calculated. They used the 85th percentile number, 3.74. So
What's that?
if 50% is the average rate, you see, if you jump up two boldface titles there, you see average rate 2.91. So if you averaged all the data from all the sites they looked at and took a 50% number, so they averaged 2.91 spaces required per 1,000 square feet. And you, just to be conservative, which is what they did, they used the 85th percentile rate. In my memo, it says that indicates that you might be 15% short in the number of spaces, because if you went to 100, that could be the worst case. That's my interpretation after I spoke with the applicant's traffic engineer, after the memo was written, not exactly correct. That 85th percentile number is like a confidence level. So they said, well, we're not going to use the average, we'll be a little conservative. We'll say 80, let's use the 85th percentile number of all those sites that was looked at. So the 85th percentile is a typical number that you use for design. In designing a road, you'll design for 85% of the condition, traffic condition. In terms of traffic volume, you don't take 100, you don't take the worst case. You want to use a little leeway because you may have a short period of time when that's exceeded. So they used the 3.74 number, and they determined that in the memo, you'll see that they calculated a surplus of 24, I'm 3 lines from the bottom of the first page. They calculated a surplus of 24 spaces between the two sites. So they're sharing parking. So some of the parking, when one site's busy, occurs on the site next to it, on the CVS site, say, and vice versa. When CVS is busy, some of the parking occurs on the Hamlet Green site. I had said that if you used, in my interpretation, which was a little bit off, I said that you might have more parking spaces occupied if you went to a higher rate. Now, this is a very, and I'll just step aside and just say on the second page is how I got my number. Because I looked, well, I'm sorry, the second page is December. So I also took a look at December, even though it doesn't say it in the memo. And you'll see the 85th percentile number in December is 5.9, so it's high. So this is a very speculative thing because you're trying to predict the future. You have 2 different sites with different uses, and you're trying to predict parking at various times of the day and seasons. So I think the point here is where they have determined there's a surplus of 20 some odd spaces. I said, geez, it might be close. We don't really know until the site's open and we look at it at various times of the day. The important thing here is that there's on-street parking in front of Hamlet Green if you wanted to visit the stores in front of the site, or if you couldn't find a space in CVS, you were driving by and you said, it looks pretty full, I'll just park on the roadway here. There's a significant number of parking accidents between Springville and Ponquag. I mean, it's a pretty long distance, but there were a third of the accidents that were recorded in that section, the accident data that was in the traffic study, were parking accidents. So that's parked vehicles getting hit, vehicles backing in, getting hit. I know you have a downtown revitalization study ongoing. I don't know if the recommendations got to parking, but in a lot of cases, when there's a slowdown of traffic, when there's a lot of traffic and there's a lot of parking activity, what is sometimes used on downtown streets is tandem parking. You've probably seen it elsewhere, where you have 2 spaces and then an X zone that's painted
Yeah,
out.
so you could pull it.
If you wanted to get in the front space, you'd pull off the road into the X, so you're out of traffic, you're not blocking the traffic behind you, and you back up into that first space. If you want to go into the rear of those 2 spaces, you just pull right in. You pull over, you go through the X zone, and you pull in. It's very efficient at not slowing traffic down, and it reduces accidents. So that may be something that, because you may have a problem here, there may be some times when cars are not able to be accommodated off-street between the 2 sites sharing their parking, that you may want to think about doing something there, because there is already a problem. Or maybe that's just incorporated into the revitalization study as one of the recommendations, because it's good practice. Now, there's also, for the Hamlet Green, there's the opportunity to park on Good Ground Road, because there's on-street parking spaces there as well. So if you couldn't find, if you were just looking at the rear of Hamlet Green and you wanted to park there and everything looked full, and you can't really see a lot of the spaces on CVS, and you just want to pull over on the side of the road, that's probably a better situation because there's less traffic on that roadway.
Is CVS considered a holiday retail destination?
No, that's what I was going to say. See, you have a December situation, and based on the stores that are there,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have something, a retail store that's going to sell Christmas things, I mean, CVS does.
They do, they sell wrapping paper, they sell all
Yeah,
kinds
that's
of
true.
gifts.
There
I
is
mean,
some of it, yeah.
I would argue that
Yes.
people will go there
Yeah.
for the holiday. I
Yeah.
mean, if I was gonna buy wrapping paper, that's where I would go.
Yeah, or cards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably don't have a lot of choices, to get that in downtown Hampton Bays anyway, so you're limited in where you can go to buy that.
Yeah, but on the Hamlet Green site, there's offices, there's a couple of offices, I think, there, and so those are, if there's, I think it was a real estate office I saw, that's probably not gonna peak at Christmas, because people are out shopping at CVS.
Yeah, there's multiple uses in that site. It's office in the back, there's the couple little takeout restaurants. So shopping center, I mean, I'm surprised it's 17,000 square feet. But probably, I mean, it may be without more units.
Yeah, that's
but-
a number that was in the study, I
Yeah.
think, so I went with that.
So can we talk a little bit about the entrances and the exits on Springville? There are 2 currently. Did we ever have a conversation about closing one up?
You'd want to.
The
Well-
traffic study didn't show that.
Didn't show that, because sometimes you cannot get out of that lower.
Well, they have the X,
Because the
Right.
traffic is just
they have
bumper
the
to
X,
bumper.
they have that X.
Do not block the box we
Yeah.
put in a few years ago. I don't know how effective that is.
It
but-
is effective.
It's
very.
pretty effective, yeah.
Yeah, I drove through there today to take a fresh look, and, the box was open.
Yeah.
I made a right turn coming out.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad idea with additional traffic to paint that box on the southerly exit,
Right.
access point too.
Yeah.
So refresh the northerly one and
Yep.
maybe
And
add
the
one.
new one on
Add
southerly
one.
with a
Yeah.
sign,
Right.
the proper sign,
That
do
would
not
be
block
helpful.
side road.
Right.
That's actually
That's a town road.
What's really
Springville's
nice
a
though
town
yeah,
road.
is,
that's
like,
a driveway, that's not really a roadway.
Don't block the
But
box
this-
is what they used in New York. I don't know if we're allowed
Yeah,
to say
the
that or
southern-
not.
Gotta be,
The southern
according-
access is.
according to the manual,
It's not in the
thin manual,
MUTCD.
I don't think the driveway is in there. There's warning signs for driveway, but not. So technically, I don't think you
Can't
want to
do it.
remove the box on the other one, but,
No, you don't want to
No,
remove
we
it.
don't,
We
we
want
want
to add the
two.
one on the
Yeah, or
side.
Well,
works.
add one,
Yeah,
yeah.
or whatever, to help facilitate the
yeah,
movement there.
that box definitely works.
Yeah.
Is it the town, the highway
Back
department?
Town Highway Department did that several years ago, the original one, and then,
Yeah,
so they could refresh that, or I don't know if we can get the applicant to refresh it, and then maybe add the one farther south, because that intersection does back up all the
Yep.
time.
oh,
Right, right.
Yeah.
And again, even the second comment is subject to, I mean, if you do something on, of course, you know, on Montauk Highway, if you do something with the parking, we recommend tandem parking, that's a county
Okay.
approval. Although the county does not set the parking regulations, they do approve
Discuss, I
the fact that you
tell
put
you,
on.
when we put in a crosswalk a little bit farther east of here, we had to take out a parking space.
Mhm.
We got a lot of feedback, let me put it, not very happy feedback from the merchants. So, but you're right, it is very tight road too. You know,
Mhm.
that's, I think, part of the issue with the, parking accidents is probably you're pulling out and you've got, this
Yeah.
much space between you and the car next to you.
Yeah,
And it's
But-
parallel parking.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Right. I mean, certainly, again, we could pass that along to, talk to the county about that possibility.
Yeah, I think the tandem parking, because you have, you do lose spaces. The actual space, you can be shorter. If you have standard 25-foot spaces,
Yeah.
you can have, because of that maneuverability area, you can have two 20s. And I think the X area is 16 feet long. So you do end up losing about, if you have a stretch of road, about 15%, I think, of the parking spaces. So
I'm
that's,
not quite sure how you get in.
That's a
How does
consideration.
it work, the tandem park?
I wish I brought a sketch.
Well, use your umbrella and a pen or something.
Well,
Just-
I can actually draw the,
You got two spaces, then a space.
Then
Yeah.
the next, okay.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so you have a space, let's say, you have a space here, and a second space, and then you have this X area, right?
I get it. So
And then you
pull
have the
into
same thing
You
here.
pull into the X,
So if you want to get into this space, and there's a car here,
you just pull
you
right
know,
in,
it's, sorry,
right?
it's,
No,
And when you do a series of them, you've really opened it up, I guess.
yeah. So if you want to get into this space, instead of trying to pull in here, and, you could do that, but you could also
Pull into
stop
the X
here
and back
and just
up.
back right in.
Okay, but you
But
lose
you can
parking
also,
spaces.
pulling in
don't
forward
lose parking,
saves
yeah.
time.
you?
You
Yes.
do
Sad
lose
our society's
about
getting weak and
15%.
don't know how to parallel park anymore. I do, and drive.
Well, you have a lot of trucks and trailers
Well,
along there
Yes,
too.
When- when
busy
I'm-
street, yeah.
When I'm parallel parking on a busy street, I get so stressed that I screw up,
I-
because you're holding up traffic.
It's like taking your first road test, right? When
Human
you're like, I know I got to
evolution.
parallel park, I
Downhill.
know I got to do it. The pressure's on.
And
The
when-
pressure is when you're nose in parking, what's the word for?
Angle parking.
Angle
yeah.
parking, and you're backing out and the traffic is
Oh,
coming,
yeah.
that is so dangerous.
That is
Well-
really-
When Southampton Village changed
Yeah.
that street, it was
So,
just
Yeah, Hill Street.
difficult.
There is
Yes. My
something
car has all
called
kinds of-
reverse angle parking, where you back in. So it's angle parking, but the spaces go the other
Oh,
direction.
the other way.
So
Yeah.
you stop and you
then
back.
you
So
back
when you
in.
leave, you can sit.
You're right in the front, you go
Wow.
right
Yeah.
out nose first.
Now, we were involved in the,
The village?
in this
Bridgehampton?
planning study here in Hampton Bays. It was there was a DEIS, right, done 15 years ago, 10 years ago? We were involved in that, but for Good Ground Road, we were asked to do, not Good Ground Road, but in Good Ground Park, the roadway that was built, we were asked to look at what the parking should be, and we had suggested it because it was a wide road, reverse angle parking. Should
Reverse
try it
angle
there.
parking,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And we talked
that's
about
the-
it, I think, up in Bridgehampton, when we did the whole, it didn't survive the discussions.
Oh,
but
okay.
I think we talked
Yeah.
about it.
That's right.
Ah,
Divide,
Yeah.
these
The,
folks,
tra-
McLean handled
traffic
the
calming.
Bridgehampton traffic calming
Yeah.
project we
Yeah.
did a few years ago.
Yeah, this, New York City has some. I've seen it near police stations, probably because,
Yeah.
if they get a
They
call,
gotta
they
get
run
out
out,
quick.
get in, and
These
go.
cars have to back in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
you're
that's
right.
right. They have to.
Question
This
on
all
this.
depends on people's ability
So
to reverse
they're
into a spot
proposing
control.
the
I think
cross-access
Mhm.
here at the end of the lane, like this, and then another one
In the
here.
back.
Yeah, well, actually, they
Or
share
is there
the,
just one?
they share the access in
Can you
toward,
blow that up, Claire?
toward Montauk Highway.
So they share the access from Montauk Highway. So
That's-
the one access will go away and then they'll be combined. The two accesses will go away. They'll be
Okay.
combined in the center. And then this, they'll share, this is the property line, can you
Yep.
see?
Mm-hmm.
That is the property line, and then this is going to be a shared two-way.
So where's the opening between the two lots?
So
Where her cursor?
this, where the cursor is the beginning of the two properties,
Yep.
the edge of the property. So I'm going down the property line, so they're sharing the parking on it. So this parking is on,
Hamlet
called
Green.
Yeah, what
Hamlet
I'm
Green.
asking is like, right now, you know, if you're going to the movie theater, which would be CVS, there's like a chain link fence along the line.
Yep.
So where does that?
It's gonna be
open up?
gone.
Where is it gonna open up? Is it gonna be completely open?
Yes, so they're
Or
gonna.
are there gonna be like plantings and then an opening?
Put your
With
cursor,
a curb.
Claire, in the back where it.
Yeah,
where it
so
hooks.
completely open. So the property line is here, but you can see it's in the middle of the aisle for the shared parking area.
So can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah. It's on your, it's in the packet too.
I can't see it. Even, I mean, and I'm
That's
only
why I
40.
need a magnifier.
But then you drive down.
You
Right.
drive down and you are
Straddling the property.
straddling the property
Okay.
line.
It's got,
Great,
The big print here, if you want.
great.
Yeah,
And you see
so.
where those 2 hours are, that's where
Be
the
careful
entrance
with
is.
straws, get upset.
Yeah, so the cross access is down in the
Down
southeast
there.
corner.
Yep.
There's a series of pedestrian accesses, you know, maybe somebody that is heading up to this building doesn't want to go all the way back there, and they might sneak in here.
This is like a curb, the slope.
Yeah, that's parking, that's landscaping in the parking lot.
That's to separate the lot from the aisle.
So here and here are the openings.
That's just
Is
for
there
the-
any concern about this opening of people that are coming in of the, off of Montauk Highway? And somebody that might be turning
I think
right?
so, and it's much improved from, well, I'll let Ray go, because I'm not supposed to
no,
be up
it's
here.
it's a
But
good.
the current aisle is
Yeah.
here.
It's a good distance. It's about 20,
just,
40, 60, 75 feet,
just
70
Oh,
feet.
75, okay, yeah,
On the
okay,
record.
Yeah.
great.
Just
That
identify
was the only
yourself.
thing I
Just
was
spoke on the
thinking
record.
about.
You can sit.
Yep,
Here, you'll sit over here, I'll sit over here.
and just identify yourselves for the record.
That's gonna
Pat
be a huge
Linehan,
improvement.
BHP Engineering.
That's a huge improvement.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, I'm Christopher Kent from Farrell Fritz, attorney for the applicant, CBS.
Traffic engineer.
So you've all communicated. Is any other questions for Ray on this traffic report? You heard what we talked about, painting the box, because getting out of there is really.
Yeah, I can, a couple of his comments in his memo, we agree, and we will secure the county approvals to do the
Sign.
signal, you know, the signage as you're heading east on Montauk Highway.
Okay.
And we'll figure out the right
I
location. We'll
have
work
a-
with the county
I
on
have a
that.
suspicion it was probably there at one point, and was knocked down.
I was just, I
Probably, yeah.
remembered one there, but.
For
Oh, yeah?
most folks too, so like on,
I didn't.
where you are
Snowplow.
crossing over there, for folks that live further south off of Springville, they might actually consider going out this way and then coming out to Good Ground and making the left from there, away from all the traffic. So
Yeah,
if there's
they
signage
could go-
within the
they could go
property to
this
say
way.
exit to Good Ground Road,
Definitely,
So
definitely.
then
That's the whole
people
idea
aren't
of the
making
cross
the
access.
left
Yeah, we'll
hand
get them
turn.
out of the shopping center into to the east, cross access to Good Ground.
In general, the more connections you provide and the more flexible it is for everybody, you'll see, you know, it's not gonna be noticeable because it's only a CVS, but you'll see traffic, you could see traffic volumes in certain places drop as people are doing the
get
thing they really
circulation.
wanna do anyway.
well, and additional, stores, like the Good Ground Commons is actually a really nice arrangement, but it's not well trafficked, so there's not many interesting things in there because no one can access it, but to share that and go back and forth and not to hop a chain link fence, I think it's a nice improvement as well.
And we have an agreement to do that. We're just waiting now for, you know, public hearing, site plan, and then we'll move forward with what we have to do to establish the cross access.
Great.
Also, the second thing, we will refresh that box, the existing box in the north entrance off Springville, and we'll add the second on the southern entrance off of
Paint it
Springville.
with fluorescent paint.
Fluorescent paint, is that what you-
That's not in the
County will be
MUTCD.
over.
And we'll do whatever we have to do with the county to improve it.
The one thing on the graph, and I won't pretend to understand, but I did notice non-December. Was there some, did that have any to do, did you factor in seasonality at all when you were looking at the parking?
We were asked at the beginning, and frankly, we would have done the same even if we weren't asked, just knowing what goes on out here.
Right.
We counted in August.
Yes.
Okay.
We,
okay.
you know, we made sure to avoid March.
Okay, good.
So,
Except
when, you know,
March 20.
when you look at seasonality, I'm not 100% sure holiday season, Christmas is higher than August here.
Right.
You know, it
I
might be a
think it
wash, I don't know, but, you know, we thought we covered it.
No, August is a good barometer.
Yes, it's the best barometer, because that's the madness.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember if we were pointed in that direction or
I
whether
think
we did it
you
on
were.
our
I
own.
remember the conversation.
But I would not have, you know, anything out here in general, we know to look at summertime.
Well,
And, you
sometimes
know,
people do traffic studies and they do them in January.
you know, in their
They
defense,
try.
sometimes the client won't let them wait.
Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes they have to do it in January, and then they use a monthly factor and say that, you know, and then you're like, oh, I don't think
You advise the client not to do it,
Those factors
and
don't
then
work.
sometimes
Yeah,
they
but
just,
the factors don't work for the east end of
Yeah,
the
they're
island.
different.
This is a unique.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
Unless they bump it up by
Geography.
20.
So,
disagree.
okay.
So the next step, one is easy, two is just a little bit more information, I think. Ray, is that what you're asking for, like to run the two numbers for the uses?
You
Is that
know,
summary? Or is it just saying it's borderline and just recognize
well,
that?
it's one of those things where you don't know until you
Yeah.
actually do it. you know?
Okay.
So it's okay. I mean, you know,
It's borderline, but it works, okay.
it's
Well,
borderline, but it looks like there's enough parking,
Good.
but, you
And if we
know,
went for the higher number, do we have enough spaces, or do we
Well,
don't?
we could agree, I mean, if the planning board wishes, we could have land banking on the parking that we created green space. We actually took away parking spaces at your request to increase the green space along Montauk Highway as the entrance to the downtown.
So we could do that.
We can land bank that if it becomes necessary for parking and you,
Yeah.
you know, make that decision, we could land bank it now and say, we'll have it as green space and if it
I
becomes
have a
necessary.
suspicion that this is.
What
I
about
would hate to give it
designing
up.
the building like they did
Because
with
I don't think this
Cinderella
goes
in
like a shopping
Southampton
center.
Village, where there's
It doesn't
actually
look
a
like it.
back
We were in the middle of
entrance to come
had
into
no
the
choice.
building? So
Yeah,
you
do
could
the-
park along good ground or in that,
did the
Hamilton
choice.
We've had that
I'm sorry.
conversation.
Can't
And
do
they
the
don't
entrance
wanna
to
do it.
CVS from the back,
They
because the
don't want it.
pharmacy's gonna be back there, and for safety purposes, they don't want an entrance near the pharmacy.
We fought for that.
Yeah.
What about a side entrance instead of a front entrance? Or, no, because it's adjacent to the
We
two
talked about a
other-
bunch of alternatives.
Yeah, okay.
We
It's
can't
It's in
really-
the
surrounded by
center.
stores.
It's
Yeah.
the center of.
Right, yeah, I
business
remember
centers,
now,
yeah.
yeah.
It's the very center of
We
it.
tried.
And this is approved, the parking lot was approved for a movie theater use, which, when popular, would be a higher count of cars probably than the CVS use. I mean, CVS is shorter term parking, but the movie theater usually has a higher demand, especially with
I remember-
5 theaters.
But our intent is to green up that parking lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of
remember the
asphalt,
study.
a lot of asphalt.
Oh,
There
you
it-
did?
And it's right there in the front, you
I'm
see
old.
it.
Right, and Hamlet's next door, it's just all asphalt, and that parking lot's very empty much of the time. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
I am, and we could do whatever, we'd like to move on to a public hearing if we could.
Yeah.
We could-
Yes, let's do that.
So,
If we
so
could deem it
Red
complete
Rocks, we haven't do secret. But this was the last item that you needed.
Right.
So let me write the secret documents. I'll get them to you way ahead of time, so you
Okay.
have some time to look at it and the applicants. So
Good.
probably next week. Because we've already gone through a lot of these documents. It's a matter of like inserting this information in there.
Okay.
And then at that meeting, if you adopt a negative declaration, you can schedule a public
Schedule a
hearing.
public hearing.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
And this was the 5th generation manual? Just curious what year that was, do you know?
that's new. That was.
Parking is
A
5th,
year ago?
trips are 11th.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, has anybody started to try to get a handle on what happened since COVID? Since, everybody working from home, all that kind of thing? Just a
in
quick
terms of
question.
the
In
traffic?
terms of demand on parking or
Well,
retail store parking?
There was a big article in the Times about how we've overpopulated parking lots
Right, that's,
in the United States, and
Right.
how much asphalt we have that we really don't need.
Yeah.
figured
I
I'd
think
pick
I
your
sent
guys'
that
brain.
article to the board. Yeah.
Right,
There is some evidence from actual counts done that in terms of traffic, the traditional peak commuting periods are still depressed by a bit, but the off-peaks are high.
Yes.
So people are telling you they're working at home,
Right.
and they're out driving around.
Well, they're playing golf at 4 o'clock. That was another Times article about how they found using, I guess, some sort of GPS, all the people that are at golf courses the late afternoon. That doesn't mean they don't have to come back and work some more.
Yeah, we've seen some higher levels of parking in the middle of the day at large multifamily complexes that we didn't see before because more people are at home.
Yeah.
But it hasn't caused a problem because the peak for the multifamily is in the middle of the night.
So it's
So you
spreading, kind of spreading
Yeah.
out a little.
Yeah, so you really design a residential parking lot for the middle of the night when everybody's home. And if a few people don't leave in the morning, it really doesn't bother.
Well,
But it's different.
The office parking is seeing a lot less cars
Way
parked
less.
in them, because, and
It's the
they're in
other end of the
towns.
car, right? It's
And
the other end
retail.
of the
yes,
trip.
well,
to get there.
when, I spent a year doing consulting from my home out here, and at 3 o'clock on a hot sunny day, I would go down to the bay and take a swim, but then come back and work for another hour
Right.
after I was refreshed. So that doesn't mean that people are not going back to work.
So the demand for the on-site parking at your house has increased.
But we don't know how it's affected retail parking yet or anything like that. There's nothing.
Well, for a while, the malls were
I
empty.
think retail in general has been.
And a lot of
Yeah, I
mall
mean-
owners
But
were
but
looking to
Yeah.
there have been
repurpose
more and
their
more
malls. I don't know if
articles
you- I've had
about
many applications up in Huntington.
the
mostly.
parking
Right.
requirements that towns impose being excessive.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so maybe one day in the future, we can look at that, because our
Yeah.
parking regs are, one
Way.
for, what
Not
is
in
it,
my
Claire?
time.
One for
check-
every, what's the part?
180,
One for 180?
In this case, I think it's 1 for 200 because it's existing.
but like office building is only one.
Yeah.
That's not that bad.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay, thank you.
You want us to give this here, or?
No,
I think
Claire,
we're fine.
you
We'll
will-
have that, we'll have it.
We have it. We have the plans. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Fine. Okay, Claire Passanelli, number 7.
Yeah, I talked to Jackie about this, after consultation with the town attorney and the attorney for Passanelli. We think it's cleaner to have a public hearing on the sunset, provisions of those parts of those conditions. And so, we are going to schedule that for April 13th. At the same time, I'm coordinating with SECR. We're just gonna make sure the SECR documents also are correct for the applications. So those two actions, April 13th at 6 PM.
Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Claire, do we need to do anything to revise our documents process-wise on this?
No,
No.
Claire knows what to do. She's gonna add language in the whereases leading up to the condition like that, because really you're not changing any of the conditions.
No.
You're just putting in like a
Language in the covenant.
prerequisite.
Are we doing the covenant?
We're going to, make sure that the condition reflects that, and then I'll put it in the covenant.
Okay, great.
It is, as she's saying, the change to the whereas about the use. This is attached to the use.
And do you have to notice this?
It's going to be
Again,
noticed in the paper as a modification, and,
Notice
just,
on the property?
yes, notice on the property and to the neighbors.
And letters, okay.
Yes.
Great,
Just like a modification to any site plan.
great.
Okay.
Okay, Claire, so number 8, near the
Yes.
bridge,
The bridge, which is page number 38.
38.
I'm almost there, and I do have someone coming in, his name is Jake Watkins, he's the applicant's representative, he's on Zoom. I'll just go briefly over it, it's probably pretty straightforward. This is the golf at the bridge where they're adding the additional units here. And then they had a maintenance building, so that's almost
And
completed.
storage.
Yeah, that's almost completed, but they want to do 2 changes, which is modify this roadway to provide a, not quite like this, but to provide an extra lane and stop sign here and here, which seems safe, and it's an interior road. The other addition is a gatehouse up here towards so this is the subdivision road where the residences are, and this gatehouse would be for the golf course. that there would be somebody at the golf course, which seems to be pretty innocuous. So this is the gatehouse here, this is the road. There's just gonna be a hatch here on the road, and then this is gonna be a stop sign and a stop sign. So pretty straightforward.
So that road goes into the golf course and the other road goes into the subdivision.
Right,
But
exactly.
this is all interior, it's not.
It's all interior.
not-
Yes,
not
there are,
not-
it is a subdivision road, but there's not gonna be change, it's gonna have just some painting and stop signs put in it, so that's pretty straightforward.
From Millstone.
From on the bridge, it's
It's in-
called
it's in the property.
Bridge Road,
Oh,
the Bridge
okay.
Road, I think it's called.
I think we had suggested they look at a T intersection.
Yeah,
But
but this is the
it's-
closest to do it,
there.
with the stop signs, it makes sense,
Right.
just to keep it controlled,
Right.
so. Without having to redesign the whole road.
So draft in progress, what does that mean, Claire?
That if you're inclined, I can approve it.
Do you have everything?
Yeah, I do. Going back to the resolution. Fire marshal had no special concerns. The town engineer had no special concerns. And so if you want to approve it upon the plans submitted for modification, we can do that.
Everybody in agreement with that?
What are you gonna add to the bottom? It says, whereas the planning board
Finds
finds.
that the changes are,
Acceptable, but,
you meet the standards of site plan.
Yep,
Okay,
good. Okay, motion by George, second by
second.
Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1
You didn't
absent.
have to say anything, Jake.
Oh, there you are.
You got approved. And then, so my next one is Bridgehampton comments. It's not TJ Maxx. I'm sorry that the program has 6 places to change names.
I was
It's
you
William
confused me.
Sonoma. It's William Sonoma,
Yeah.
which is an existing store. They want to change the facade.
The sign?
No, actually, the facade to
The sign.
accommodate a sign. So
The
Oh, they
name
don't
is
have
too
a
big.
peak, yeah.
they don't have a peak to accommodate the sign. So they submitted the Williams Sonoma. It had some extra wording on the bottom, California and such. So the ARB did review it. They approved it, subject to it being centered and the California name coming off. And I think it
Just
looks
William
pretty good.
Sonoma. What color?
I think they're proposing
Red or the
Black.
green?
black. Great.
So
Some
this
of the,
would-
some of the
this-
signage looks pretty good.
Yeah, so this would be one of the larger stores
Right,
that could have
above
their
the
own.
5,000, no, 8,000, 5,000, 8,000.
It's pretty
square feet.
large, yeah.
Yeah, so it would have the separate sign.
Yes, hi.
Michael Shiano from InterScience on behalf of the applicant. So under the master sign plan, it says that any use over 8,000 square feet can have one of these prototypical signs. Under the town code, we can still come and ask for a larger sign if the use is under 8,000 square feet. This one is 7,600 square feet.
So excited.
Yeah, so what had happened was, we went through the process to get the master sign plan done. We went through the process of, we're on the cusp of getting all the building permits for all of this, and William Sonoma went to the landlord and said, well, why can't we have one of those signs? Is that, yeah. You want to come up, please?
So is this sign in scale? Do we know that with the other signs?
Yeah, so this rendering is very helpful. See, you see how big Staples is there.
Right.
Right, and that's one of the bigger ones with the,
Yeah.
allowed to have the separate ones. And then Ulta, the same thing. So this is more in keeping, right? Is this the
Yeah, if
one
you just
here?
scroll up, I think
Yeah.
that there's a proposal,
Yeah.
yeah.
There you go. So it's
And it's
smaller.
in black?
And it's
Yeah,
in
it's
black
black.
instead of white, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I think it
Sounds
works.
pretty
So you'd be
straightforward.
approving
Yeah.
both a facade change to eliminate the window, the faux window.
Oh, the faux window is coming?
Yeah, so you can see that faux window below is
Oh.
coming out. And then the sign to be different than the master sign plan, which they're always optional to come back for in this case. Okay?
Hate to lose the faux window. But there's no other way for you to do it.
Correct.
And we made sure to stress that this was happening with the Architectural Review Board, and they said that they did not have an issue with it. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, it is clear.
Okay.
Good, okay. All right, motion to adopt this?
Motion.
By Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any club properties,
I would have
Claire?
passed it.
Yeah, we're all getting ready, ready for ball season.
I'm just so loud at you. No, I did.
Thank you.
48.
This one is a borderline situation, and the reason I'm bringing it to you is because it's in the wetlands jurisdiction. So initially, they came to us and they wanted to replace one of the tennis courts with a,
Oh, the pickleball courts.
Pickleball.
yeah, with the pickleball courts. And they proposed the one adjacent to the wetlands. I said, can we just do the one in the back? So they're doing this one, which is about 140 feet from the wetlands, which is a better setback. And what it is they're changing the surface from the clay surface, which allows some permeability, but not a lot, to asphalt. So it is a change of the surface, but meets the setbacks. Actually, I do have comments from Conservation, and they approved it. Town engineers approved it.
But is it 1 pickleball court or 2 on the tennis court?
It's 3.
It's 3.
It's 3.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, now you have to identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
My name is Bill Goodspeed. I'm with Gold Coast Tennis, and Southampton hired us to build the courts.
Justin Kwasnik from the same company.
Did you leave a cell phone?
Do you want us to call it?
Do you want us to?
Call it. You want to give me the number? I'll give it a
Do you want us to
shot.
call it?
Yeah,
If it's not here, it's in my car somewhere.
well, we can call it.
Sorry, no, that's okay. Sorry to
Nothing on the
interrupt.
ground.
Okay. So you're gonna demolish just,
Just the rear court, the one that's further away from the wetlands, so this
Okay.
one
Take
right
out
here.
the court that's there and put in a
3
new
pickleball
surface.
The 3
Yes.
pickleballs, and it's shown on this plan. Can you see that?
Essentially, all we're removing is 1 inch of the harsher clay, redistributing the existing material and paving essentially over that, within the same footprint.
do you need any drainage?
No, the town engineer said no,
No?
not in this case.
Okay, all right.
So it's
No
pretty
issues?
straightforward, but because of the wetlands, you'd be issuing a site plan wetlands permit that conforms with the code. Obviously, we have the conservation comments that are positive, no additional requirements, and they'd be on their way to submit for a building permit.
No fencing or any other related thing.
No?
Okay.
Fencing is
It's
existing.
existing.
Okay.
What about between the courts?
There's fencing between the courts as well.
Well, then that's new fencing.
No, it's
There's nothing
existing.
there.
It's existing.
The pickleball is like in one area of the tennis court, right?
It's
Like the courts
it's
are-
one of the 14 courts is being redistributed.
But each pickleball court doesn't have fencing in
That's-
between.
That's
Correct.
correct.
That's what
Right.
I was questioning.
My apologies.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Next year,
They're
you'll
much
have to do
smaller.
another one.
Oh, another
Very
popularity.
popular. You're
The way
gonna
it's
have to
going.
convert
It's
it.
more of a dead ball, right? So
Yes.
that's why. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Thank
So,
Yeah, so
mo-
approve the plans as submitted.
Motion to approve by George, second
Second.
by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1
Thank you.
absent. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anthony, you're back with Joseph
Well, I'll find that one.
Griner,
Is Jim Hume on Zoom?
Charles?
Jim's been having a hard time getting.
No one on Zoom, so
Or should we skip
number
just-
11 we'll adjourn to next time. I want the applicant there.
Okay, so 11 is off,
11 is all.
and then you've got Camp Jerome.
So let me just go here. Okay. So the board might recall in Quiog here, this is on Main Street. In Quiog, this is the Camp Jerome subdivision that we looked at some time ago. The board, there's multiple structures on here, everything is CO'd. We looked at this a couple of years ago. Basically, what the applicant was doing was breaking off a large piece along the creek here to preserve all the structures that are part of the family, and then they were going to do 3 other lots back here. We
Is
did
this
a-
the one where they had access to the water, sort of a walking path?
No, that
This
was
is
a
not
different
Jim.
one. No, that was a different one, yeah. So, we had the public hearing, and we did a pre-app report. The public came out, they said, they were very nice. They said, maybe the applicant could go to CPF and see if there's anything to do, but they weren't particularly angry. But so we did a pre-app report, and, we said, look, absent preserving the land, we didn't think a cluster was necessary here, that we would do easements, to preserve the views. The applicant has subsequently gone to CPF and the health department, and basically what they did was they took the 3 proposed lots that they were doing over here, the new lots, they're creating one lot, and this is the lot that's going to CPF. So at the end of the day, no new residential densities being created as a result of this subdivision. The driveways that are here will have to be removed, and probably noted on there. The structure is noted to be removed. And then this property could still have access from Alden Lane, which it does. So that's it. So now there's no proposed development.
So,
at this
but
point.
will it be revegetated, or?
It'll be, the town's gonna purchase it,
CPF.
and it's CPF, and it'll, could probably remain in its natural state.
But the existing, all the cottages and everything else is
So it remains just one lot remains with all the property on it.
All this stuff over here stays on the second lot, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole historic piece there. It's got like a family history that was, so absent now proposing any residential lots beyond this, I couldn't completely recommend waiving everything because it's on the creek there. And so we gotta cover a wetlands permit for the next 3 years for this property, and that's good, that's actually good for them. So what I'm recommending here is simply to deem the application complete, waive the hearing, and waive the referrals with the exception of the Conservation Board, because that's the only referral we need to do at this point, since nothing's being proposed.
Can you go back to the overhead just to see? It's pretty wooded over there, that's great.
Yeah, it's got some driveways, we're going to ensure that.
Yeah, so basically what you're looking at is this, what it was everybody here liked the views into here. The problem is it's a town property now. Is the town going to mow what was a horse, pasture at one point? But I guess still better than 3 additional lots close to the creek. So
You don't want a public hearing here?
I don't know, since there's no new density being created and it's being preserved, I don't know that one's necessary. We've accomplished what the citizens were concerned with. Probably better than what they thought they were gonna get there, so. I would just recommend deeming it complete and doing a referral to the Conservation Board, is my recommendation.
So they're carving out one lot.
One lot for themselves, yeah.
Which
And rather than do the 3 others, the town said, and the health department said, just create one for the town to purchase, basically, instead of 3 separate.
No requirements on the parcel that remains with the property? They have the proper setbacks?
Yeah, everything's existing, but that's why we're doing the 292 referral, because I am going to, on that piece that's on the waterfront, we are going to reestablish wetlands buffers and easements as may be needed.
We don't have to do that here?
We're gonna, that's why we're deeming it complete and sending it off to the Conservation Board.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
So do you have a resolution?
I actually didn't prepare a resolution for this one because I wasn't sure if it was gonna be on. But I'm just recommending that we deem it complete, waive the final hearing, and do a referral to the Conservation Board.
Okay, motion to deem it complete by
I'll
Kate.
second.
Second by George, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Cool. All Stables at Spionk is back. We've been doing this for a long time, since I've been here. So, we deemed this final application incomplete recently. This is the property here. I just want to, I'm lying to you. This is the property down here. The green is existing town preserved land. So the board remembers. We're basically doing 7 lot plan, 6 lot yield, 1 lot additional for the Long Island workforce housing, and then the open space in the back. Basically, it's sort of going to line up with all this, and hopefully we can do something about this missing piece. The applicant submitted, I was missing some paperwork as it relates to, it's in an LLC, so I always have to make sure I have the LLC papers. He finally submitted everything, so now we could deem this complete. And I would have a final hearing on this one because the public did come out for this one. So I would recommend the public hearing, deem it complete, schedule the hearing for May 11th.
I think we have 4 public hearings for the 11th.
Four now for the 11th?
We don't have anything yet for May 11th.
Well, this is one.
Yeah, we've got 4 today.
There'll be 4 for this whole meeting.
Yes.
Okay, that's good, then we'll stick with that.
That's,
Okay, so motion to deem it complete by Dennis,
second.
second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent, for the public hearing May 11th.
325 Rose
Rose Hill
Hill
Road.
Road, also another one I took over. This is the one that we just did the covenant amendment for recently. This is the Sisters of, Sisters of something.
Yeah,
Sisters of
no,
Mercy.
Yes.
nuns.
Nuns, they're nuns, they're nun property, the convent house,
Yeah, they're-
coming down, we did the
With
covenant
men-
amendment. 2-lot subdivision, also deemed incomplete not too long ago. They finally came in with some revised maps and the health department approval. So now I'm gonna recommend, deeming this one complete finally, and also scheduling a final hearing. This one did have the neighbor concern, so,
We
May
got a
11th.
letter. Did you get the letter?
I got the letter, and Nika Strunk is representing her, so I
Yes.
advised her to come to the hearing and speak
Okay.
on that letter. Yep.
Motion
Motion.
by Gloria,
Second.
second by Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Those letters are
And Jackie, just
available.
before Jeff does 15, can I just do 16 real quick?
Yeah,
Because I'm done then.
Eastport Bible,
Eastport Bible Church, this was another one of Matt's that I'm taking
I
over.
remember this.
Yeah, so this,
The entrance to that.
yeah, so this is Main Street,
Oh, that's
you got
something
the
else. That's
church
not-
there, and they own 2 residential property, actually, they own all these properties in yellow. You did a pre-submission conference on this for a roughly 6,000 square foot building associated with, with the church for use with the congregation. They came in with a site plan very similar to what you looked at before. It's just very hard to read, I have to admit. I will try to email to this board a different plan, maybe a landscaping plan or something that doesn't have as much information. This is really hard to read, I'm gonna be honest with you. But the engineer, I did a review, there was some mapping stuff missing, but the engineer is missing a whole bunch of stuff on this one, so this one we're just gonna deem incomplete at this point.
Okay, but there are three sections of buildings, right?
Yeah, what's
Church.
happening, basically what's happening is you're looking at this now as a whole, is what's happening. The 2 residences are coming down, a new building is gonna go back here, and then additional parking. It's sort of,
So it's all merging?
yeah, it looks like the properties would be merged essentially, which is, probably a question we're gonna have, because the site plan's based on all of these lots together.
Right.
But it's incomplete at this point.
And why is it special exception? That's my note, I'm not sure why.
Special exception in this note?
You have site plan
R20.
special exception?
It's R20? That could be why, smaller districts sometimes. Gloria, I'll confirm for you though.
All right.
Before we have our hearing tonight, I will let you know for sure. Yeah. But
Okay,
we'll-
so we're deeming it incomplete?
Incomplete, yeah.
Motion
No motion.
by Kate, second by
Second.
George, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
See you guys later.
You're done.
Okay.
If you see Michelangelo, can you remind him?
That's what I'm doing now.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, what's
Do
your
you mind
first
if I
one?
skip around to accommodate some of the applicants' representatives that have been
Sure.
waiting patiently for us? Let's
Which-
see, let's start with 495 County Road 39,
Number?
which
Page
is
82.
number 19. Let me pull it up.
Okay, page 82. Do you have the map up there?
Yes, I'm pulling it up for you. Here we go. The report's not in there, but we've already had the pre-submission conference, and this is just a report. I'll discuss most of the key important
This is the one for Belfort.
elements of this project that I want the planning board to focus on.
County Road 39.
We don't need the text, we need the pictures.
I'm pulling it up for you. It's just a lot. Come on.
I was trying to be nice.
Yes.
Here we go. And the applicant was kind enough to provide us with an updated version of the renderings. This property is located at the intersection of County Road 39 and McGee Street, just south of the Tuckahoe School. They're proposing a new commercial special trade contractor building. What's currently there is 3 individual structures. The main structure is a 3-use structure, pre-existing non-conforming. Every structure on the property is coming down, being demolished.
Which is a good thing.
Right, it's a good thing. This corridor itself, as you can imagine, is already being freshened up. I believe Claire had a project across the street with the historical barn. And then the gas station also got cleaned up, and obviously the Pelican pools years ago. So this is just to add to that. So this corridor, which is part of the County Road 39 corridor plan. So from a aesthetic standpoint, it does meet all of the requirements of the corridor plan, except for, or with exception, the southwest and east elevations, which kind of have a blank face, as you can see here. So we would most likely on a full site plan application ask the applicant to add some additional windows or architectural features.
That's on the North McGee Street side.
Correct. That is on the North McGee Street side. So this front facade, which has the porch, would be facing Montauk Highway. This is the McGee Street side. The other side is also pretty much the same, which I'll show you here on the elevations. And even more so, some additional windows here. Come on, there we go. Some additional windows here off the front face, the south elevation, and obviously the east and west elevations as well.
And is that a brick apron along the,
That is a brick apron along the front.
so maybe they could wrap that around those blank elevations if they had windows? and- Yeah.
Correct, I agree. So I'll add that as well. Now, this project is on County Road 39, so we're suggesting that a referral be made to the county DPW. I did question from a traffic standpoint, this is not a high volume use. Just to reiterate, the use itself is ServPro, which is a commercial restoration cleaning company for fire restoration, water damage restoration. The new structure is going to encompass a retail space, 1,944 square feet. It's going to offer office space, mezzanine office space of 648 square feet. And the remaining structure, which is the rear portion of the building, which is going to be a warehouse storage area for supplies and mechanicals associated with the use.
What's the height, Jeff?
The height here is, good question. Let's see.
You said it violated pyramid law, right?
Well, I did mention that, if you notice on the first item
Yeah.
on recommendations is concern with pyramid law. The structure itself is situated a little closer than what HB zoning district would allow, which is normally a 50-foot transitional buffer area, or essentially a setback. The existing structures are pre-existing non-conforming, and the applicant has elected to utilize that with this new structure. But the planning board, obviously, with County Road 39 corridor plan, which does instruct us to kind of push it back off County Road 39, giving a little bit more of a buffer area. May require a variance because the porch overhang, based off of the plan, seems to encroach. And also, from a height standpoint, the proposed structure is higher. I don't have the height listed here. Bill?
It's,
Oh,
yeah,
come
it's
forward,
showing the
please.
numbers.
Come forward and introduce yourself.
Can we have your name for the record, please?
Bill Kelly, and authorized agent for the owner.
Thank you.
And let me just check one thing if I can take a minute.
So from a pier law standpoint, the existing structure is clearly larger and taller than the previous structure that was there.
Yeah, right.
Generally speaking, we would ask for a pyramid sketch to see from a cubic feet standpoint how much they do encroach in terms of pyramid. So there may be a requirement for a ZBA approval for this new structure if it remains in its current position. I'm not sure if Bill has investigated that yet.
Jeff, you
Yes.
said 50 feet was required.
Correct.
What is it currently suggested?
22 point, let me just pull it up. What's there is consistent with what the pre-existing non-conforming structure that's there currently.
Okay.
And I notated
Where-
here.
I kept it 30 feet from all property lines.
Okay.
It's canted in there, so at the angle that it's sitting at, the closest it comes to any property line on the west side and the south side is 30 feet.
So it's somewhat angled?
It's actually parallel with the south property line,
Okay.
yeah.
Which
But
is-
that puts it at a cant to the west property line.
All right.
Yeah, so it puts it at a little bit of an angle
So
to the west.
it's,
One corner I'm at 30 feet, and the other corner to the porch I'm at 32 feet.
But you have the ability to do the full setback because you haven't built anything. Is council here?
Yes.
Yeah.
There.
What's the situation with, you have a pre-existing non-conforming use and the buildings are gone? Does that carry over? It would seem to me that it wouldn't, you know, that you
Yeah, no,
start,
you lose,
that you lose that,
Yeah.
yeah.
The buildings aren't gone yet.
But they will be.
They will be, but
And
my
when you build a
understanding-
new building, you
my
don't have that
understanding-
right
yeah.
to, for a pre-existing non-conforming use.
My understanding was that if the existing buildings were there, then going through the process that we're going through right now, I would be given the opportunity to use the setbacks of the existing buildings.
Yeah.
But I'm not using the setbacks, we're set back farther than what the existing buildings are. So I went to 30 feet, you know.
Well, it would seem to me that we never retire pre-existing non-conforming use if that's allowable. I would defer to council on it.
Yeah, the only reason I would bring that is because you have Pelican next door. That's the same distance that we're proposing.
I'd
And
have
there
to
was-
be with Jeff, this is the first time I'm
Yeah,
hearing
me
this
too.
issue.
From my experience, you don't lose your setbacks on a pre-existing non-conforming use even when you tear down the structure, only if the structure itself has been torn down for a period of time of, I believe, over 10 years. Then you lose your pre-existing
Hasn't
non-conforming.
been used for that, but Dennis, do you
Yeah, it
remember?
has, no, that,
Yeah, it's-
they're
it's-
active.
they're currently
It's active.
operating out of it.
The surf pros in there, I think, and their sprinkler company used to be in there.
Correct. Locksmith used to be in there as well.
Locksmith, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's the one concern. Again, from the pyramid law.
I think we comply with the pyramid law, and I'm just looking for the elevations so I can,
Was it 32 feet, the height?
well,
It definitely doesn't exceed 32 feet.
no, it doesn't exceed 32 feet. Just give me 1 second here.
While he looks for that, I'll continue. From a secret standpoint, this is an unlisted action. Under the full site plan application, we're going to request a long form, EAF form, Part 1. It's also located in New York State archaeological sensitive area. If no previous archaeological study was performed, we're asking for either Phase 1A or Phase 1B. Were you able to locate it, Bill?
Yep. 31.5 feet to the peak.
31.5.
31.5 feet to the peak. So I would make it so it, oh, okay, and then if I go to the peak location, because of the way it's canted on the property, it would be 31.5 feet off of the west property line.
And 32 is allowed.
And 32 is allowed
Height.
for a peak height, but based on the pyramid law, it's 1-to-1, so every foot I come in, so if I'm 31.5 feet at the peak off of the property line, when I do the pyramid, then I'm compliant.
Right, at a 45-degree angle.
Yep.
I know it's geometry.
Yeah,
And,
but it sits on there at an angle because the
Because
property
the
line's
property
not
line is
square.
not square.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then when
Yeah.
I placed it so that the pyramid law would clear the peak.
And
And
then
it's-
Jeff, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, and the building is correctly aligned to Montauk
To
Highway.
Montauk Highway.
So that,
Yeah, so it runs.
that doesn't look crooked there.
No, it runs parallel to Montauk Highway. Yeah. And then on the east side of the building, the blank space, it's somewhat buffered by the building next door. Because if you know, you're not gonna see, the east side of the building, you're not gonna see when you're traveling west. The only time you see it is when you're traveling west would be the only time you see the east side of the building. But it's buffered by that building next door.
What is that building?
It was the
The
upholstery
auto
building.
upholstery. The
Yeah,
upholstery.
but it's something else now.
Yeah.
It's 1 story in the front, and then it goes to a 2-story in the back. So as you're coming, you really don't catch a glimpse of this until, you know, you're right there, and you're probably past the point where you would have the view of the east side of the building.
Can you put up an aerial, please?
And then, you had the setbacks different than, what Bill was mentioning. Was the porch the
So
question there?
Correct, right?
Okay.
So from a building standpoint, the porch is calculated in your coverage area. So I take the setbacks from the porch line.
Right.
As opposed to the structural line, or at least the front facade line.
Yeah, but on the front facade, I have it at 30 feet, the porch.
Don't have the site.
The edge of the porch is 30 feet from
Yeah.
the property line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, we haven't completed the site plan yet, because we want to get through this process before we put all the energy into completing a site plan that, you know, so.
What is this action?
I guess so, just
The-
look
the-
at that again.
the-
if-
The notation, based on how I read the site plan, the survey particularly, shows the 30 feet to the front facade of the structure, as opposed to the edge of the porch line. Let me see if I can pull it up for you.
Let's see what you have for a site plan. You might not have the most recent.
Is that your
version.
most current app?
Yeah, this is the
Okay,
most current,
take a look.
yeah.
Thank you.
And that shows the building overlaid on the existing site with the existing buildings. So some of the dimensions that are on there are to the existing buildings, not to the new construction.
So we don't have a site plan, is that
Here we
correct?
go.
We do.
Yeah.
In the-
So that,
But
if you
said-
blow it up, that's the.
That's the current
That's the
one?
current
Okay.
one, yeah. Yeah. So,
For example, you see this corner here, it's read as 29. And then
that corner's not marked, that's to the existing structure.
Yeah.
this is 29.2, this is 23.0.
So the dotted line is the porch?
This,
No, the
No,
dotted
it's
line
existing.
is the existing
It says
structure.
open porch.
Foundation. Yeah, the open porch is the edge of the gray, where the X,
correct,
where the big
which
X
for,
is.
the way I read it is more than the 30 feet, or less than the 30 feet.
Well, on the.
But on the McGee Street, yes.
Yeah, on McGee Street, we're good, but on the south line, I see that one is at 29.
Yeah,
And I would move that back to 30.
good.
I have no problem.
So make a note.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the main thing is that we didn't cross access.
So we're gonna get to that as well.
Yeah, let them get to it.
The site plan does show an area here that could serve as cross-access. If you've been to the site, there is kind of a dirt path that's not necessarily formal cross-access. We'd recommend that, you know, we investigate with the neighboring property if that could.
I think it might be covenanted that they have access, because they use that single curb cut for both properties.
The one to the,
No,
it's-
is
if
it
you
east?
scroll down a little bit,
Can you-
yeah, there's a curb cut, there's an existing curb cut, and that's a shared curb cut. It's on our property, or the property that I'm representing, but it's a shared curb cut, and I'm not so sure that it's not a deeded curb cut.
And how do they get to it?
That's coming off of
Off of
County Road
39.
39. And then there's an
then
existing access from McGee Street at the north end of the northwest
Up here.
corner of the property.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Up here?
yeah, we want to keep that,
That's adjacent to the school.
yes. Yeah, school's farther back.
Yeah, but
it's-
there's
yeah,
woods.
There's woods in
Play-
between.
Definitely would
playground
wanna
and
Right,
some
right,
woods.
right, right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
definitely want to formalize that.
You're right, so I have that
Yeah.
in the report as well, that we at least investigate the cross-access opportunities.
Where is that? Cross-access?
It is on, yes, it should be highlighted cross-access.
You're saying that
Essentially, the whole, we'll call it, the whole east property line is accessible to both properties. If you were to go to the aerial, you would see.
Right, there's no barrier, fencing, or
There's-
anything.
yeah.
else.
so they don't
Right.
have another curb cut
No, they don't.
feet
No,
east
they
of
don't.
this or something?
Once you go east of that property, it's grassed area in front of their property, building.
And do you have a formal document of some kind that
I
states
don't have one on hand, but
Do you think it exists?
I think it exists because the property was just transferred. And in talking to the owner, it seemed that the conversation that I had with the owner was that was a deeded access.
So we'll look into that?
Yeah,
We'll look
deeded
into that.
access for the adjacent property.
So it's not only cross-access, but deeded access as well, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, it needs to be there anyhow because there's some agreement someplace.
The way that van's parked, it sure looks like that's what they do.
That's what they do. That's the only curb cut there. You can see that it's,
Right.
you
You
know,
can see
it's
they both
grass.
come through.
Yeah, there's no curb cut beyond that, and there's no barrier between the two properties. It goes from gravel to gravel.
What is that now? If it wasn't upholstery, do we know what it is now?
It's an automotive.
Something automotive related.
Yeah, I think they collectible cars.
Yeah,
you know,
car
whether
enthusiasts and whatnot, I
Collectible
believe,
car
yeah.
storage, and they probably do a little bit of.
So this portion of Gloria that you talked about here is owned by the school district as well. So that offers some additional screening from the school itself. On the landscape portion of the report, I do recommend that we add some additional line of screening. There's some evergreens existing here. If they wanted to really relocate these across the the northeasterly line or westerly line, that would work well. There's also some existing natural vegetation on the McGee Street side that we'd also recommend that should stay maintained. It almost serves as a buffer as well from McGee Street. So we'd like that implemented in the landscape plan. Generally speaking, there aren't any street trees or landscaping along Montauk for majority of these projects, except for, it looks like this historical barn here on this side.
I was just gonna suggest that we require some street trees here.
Sure.
So there's a curb cut,
Certainly would
there's
work
no
well with the
retaining wall
architecture.
or anything,
No,
it's
no, just,
ground level.
yeah. And we would
So maybe
use,
2 or 3, Jeff.
we want to maintain that existing road, and then there's roughly 20 feet from that existing roadway to the to the north property line, which would be, green space.
And one more element I believe that I wanted to touch on was parking. From a parking calculation, the way we calculated as staff does differ from what the site plan is listed as. We have we calculate a total of 22 parking stalls required for this proposed structure, whereas the applicant provided 15 plus the 4 parking bays with the overhead parking, so for a total of 19. Now, the code does require that a parking spot be implemented for each employee. We are proposed approximately 6 employees,
Yeah,
unless that
I
changes.
left a message for you the other day. I talked to the owner, and there's 3 full-time employees. So there'd only be 3 full-time employees.
Okay, so that reduces.
3 full-time employees during the day.
Correct, outside of pickup, drop-offs.
Right.
So that does change the calculation a bit. So that brings mine down to 19, which makes this on par with what's required by code. There is going to be a bathroom facility, so health department approval will be required as part of conditional approval. And I think we touched on cross-access.
And you'll need to put in the upgraded IA system.
Yeah. I just plotted it in because I'm working with the engineers now to design that system. And again, we were waiting to get through this part of the application, so we knew which direction to go in.
So yeah, we've touched on most of the meat and bones of the report itself. I did make a comment regarding traffic. Again, this is not a high volume type of use. There is a retail space, but we don't anticipate a lot of traffic on that road for the retail space. They're currently operating.
It's a Serve Pro.
It's for Serve Pro.
Yeah, so.
The retail space is they salvage materials from when they do cleanups and stuff like that. So they do a certain amount of retail on salvage, so that's why we
Oh, okay,
include that.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
And cleaning supplies, as you
Cleaning
mentioned as well.
supplies and just supplies that would be related to their business that would, general public can use. So it's not a heavy retail,
Mhm.
yeah.
So you'd refer this to the county DPW?
Yeah, because this project is on the county road, so we would definitely refer it and take any comments they may have regarding it. The public, the pre-submission conference didn't yield any comments, but because this project is in a town view shed, we would probably want to, recommended by the board, have another public hearing when the full site plan application comes in.
Okay. And I see you've got the dumpster, identifying the dumpster sort of.
Correct. So on the site plan doesn't identify that at all, so we just
Yeah,
want to make
yeah,
sure we get the
dumpster.
notation as far as that is concerned.
And mechanicals all screened on the roof.
They'd be in the rear of the building.
What about signage?
I think they would have, currently there's
I want to add that.
the existing,
Yeah, there's an existing sign.
There was an existing sign, and then I left space on the gable of the building on the south end for a sign.
So it's a corner property, right?
It's a
So
corner
you're-
property,
And it's a one use, so you're entitled to 2 signs,
yeah. So it'd be one on the gable of the building,
right?
and then there's one that's on 2 posts. Currently, that was the existing sign on the property is still there, and that would be what we would propose for the second sign. With the business there.
Jeff, I would suggest the county might want to consider no left out of the County Road 39 driveway.
Well, I was thinking that too.
If they want to make a left, they make a left on McGee, they go
They go
across
to
McGee
McGee
Street.
Street. That's why we want to keep that
With
access
the
there.
conversation regarding this possible covenant, yeah, so we definitely have to investigate that as well.
Yeah, and to
see
be
if that's even
signed,
possible.
we stole signage.
Yeah, okay, I get you.
No left turn, yeah.
Any other questions?
And you say this is part in the archaeological sensitive area?
Yes. There may have been, this is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. I don't know if there's been a archaeological report done on this yet. So that's something we have to look into for sure.
We would have to incorporate an archaeologist for that.
Yes.
It's a service, they come out, they do.
Yeah, they do a shovel test and then a review, and a research. Okay,
All right, so we'll move.
So you'll
with acceptance
upgrade
of
this
these-
and-
Yep, we'll
Okay.
accept into these.
So there's no
additional
action.
comments. We'll bring this back for approval. All right?
Yep, thank you, thanks very much.
Actually, before I go, for the health department, I'll need secret determination.
So that will be the next step. So we'll, once we adopt this pre-submission report, if you want, you can proceed with your full site plan application.
Okay.
And then we'll commence the secret determination, and then from that point on, you could proceed with your
You can't adopt it today?
I'm sorry?
That's what I was
He's
wondering.
got to add a lot of stuff in.
What's, oh, you're gonna,
It's
oh,
not
you're gonna add
complete,
this.
yeah.
Right, I'm gonna add up the additional information
Yeah,
and
it's only a
comments.
draft.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very
Okay.
much.
Very good, thank you.
And if you don't mind, we'll move on to that's on number 17 on the agenda, 656, 664 Montauk Highway. That's on what page?
71.
Page 71 in your packet. Alright, let me see if I can pull it up. Alright, this application is to merge adjoining parcels and for construction of a two-story mixed-use building with first floor 1,706 square foot mini market, 361 square foot ice cream shop with 16 outdoor seats. Second floor to consist of two 600-foot apartments, two 450 square foot moderate income apartments. The office space essentially is one office space, clarified by the applicant for me this morning, totaling 508 square feet. So that number 2 next to it is a typo. And 82 parking spots, 5 handicap spaces, and a truck loading space located at the rear of the proposed structure. A 50-foot wide vegetated transitional yard on both properties essentially will be merged at the end of the project. And there's an existing, if you're familiar with this,
Hampton Bays.
the property is situated just west of the park, just next to Lewis Road. If you're familiar with that park?
So
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not Hampton Bays.
That's East Quogue, is it?
Yeah, Hamlet of
Yes,
Hampton Bays.
Yes, that's an error. Definitely not Hampton Bays.
East-
It's the adjoining parcel,
So they do plan on merging both parcels.
Must be adjoining.
But is the adjoining parcel to,
is there a site?
Do you have a site plan?
yeah, this is just moving a little on the slow side. Here we go.
Oh, asphalt.
There's a site plan here. That's the survey anyway.
One's existing, this is behind it.
So the mechanic
Yeah, that's interesting.
structure here, the auto body shop here, is pre-existing non-conforming as well. That is to remain as per the application. This lot here is currently vacant, but used as additional overflow parking for this auto body shop here. I'll bring up the aerial so you can see how it's positioned. So as I mentioned before, this is the park here, right off of Lewis Road. The vacant piece here, not necessarily vacant now, utilized again as overflow parking for the auto body shop. The structure is to remain as per the application, and a new proposed two-story structure will be built on the adjoining lot, or essentially the same lot.
So is that adjoining lot an accessory to the automotive?
No, so they're going to merge the lots.
They're
So they
merging
will
the
be in the
lots?
same name, yes.
And the auto repair shop is gonna remain as auto repair?
Correct.
Where are they gonna put the excess cars?
So the existing parking, as you can notice here, not much there. They're opening up, as per the site plan, the rear of the property for additional parking for these cars. They're going to implement a 50-foot buffer, transitional yard off the rear with landscaping and vegetation, of course, for screening purposes. So let me bring you back to the site plan.
It's a very narrow building, right?
Yeah, 3,000 square feet in total footprint.
Jeff, does this raise the issue of expansion of a non-conforming use?
So we did talk about that. The parking lots, from my understanding, and I spoke to the ZBA as well, that part of the code is applicable to the structure, not necessarily the parking lot and the parking area, unless it's interpreted otherwise by council. But I spoke to ZBA and they said that they've never encountered where that portion of the code is applicable to parking and not simply the structure.
What is this, so the structure on the same piece is accessory to the new structure?
Oh, I'm sorry, so you're speaking to the new structure?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, so that's increased by a lot more than 50%.
Was it the separate parcels?
No, but
They
they're
are
being
currently
merged.
separate, yes.
Please?
Yeah. Michael Shano, science on behalf of the applicant. So the lot is able to have a certain number of uses based on the lot area. So why would proposing a separate structure that has, and we're able to have those uses separated into different buildings. So this wouldn't be accessory to the automotive shop. It's just that these are different uses and we're just using the two properties. So we have to merge the properties in order to take advantage of the area from a health department standpoint. And also because in the HC district, once you get to a certain size of building, you have to be a certain setback from the property lines. As you increase in size, the setback increases. So in order to have this size building, and also have the apartments that come with this size building, this is kind of where we landed. It was a lot of kind of weighing and balancing the HC zoning requirements and the health department requirements in order to come to this location and this size. But under the town code, you're allowed to have a certain number of uses. So this would be each one of these would be separate uses.
Is the first use allowed under the code
First use,
of the existing building?
good question. I think it's pre-existing non-conforming.
And the second use that you're proposing on the same lot is gonna be what? Completely, wholly, and unrelated to the potential of being related to the first, which may or may not be a pre-existing?
Correct.
What is the second use?
The second use will be a neighborhood market, and there's offices on the second floor that are completely unrelated to they would just be offices that could be rented, and then there's 4 apartments. And all of those are permitted uses under the code. And the reason for the additional parking in the back is actually to try and bring the existing garage in conformity with what is required under zoning for how much parking is required for that use.
Did you get an interpretation from the chief building inspector?
About whether it's an expansion, we did not, but I can speak with them. I will speak with them.
Because if you're using that lot,
Mhm.
let's not call it a lot, because you're all one.
Mhm.
It seems to me that it's an accessory to the existing automotive lot.
The thing is too, I mean, if you look at the overhead here, they're kind of solving a municipal parking issue with the Village Green next door. And I can understand why you'd want to have an ice cream shop there because the Kona ice truck does very well when the concerts are happening there. I assume that the automotive shop would not be in operation at the time of those concerts. So I think the order of operations or like the procedure is important, but also to take into consideration that there is an issue there and there could be a mutual benefit of some kind. I don't know how to accomplish that within the confines of obviously not setting a poor precedent.
It's a
right?
pretty intensive use.
Sure,
You know,
right.
You've got a shop, you've got 4 apartments. Do you have the sufficient flow?
Yes.
By merging them.
We're-
By merging.
Because the
Merging the
auto
lots,
shop
yeah.
doesn't need much, and that's a lot of
Yeah.
land.
The thing that needs the most are the apartments.
Yeah.
Well, plus you have 20 outdoor seats for the ice cream shop.
16
16?
for the neighborhood market, and that, it's a wet store with up to 16 seats, as long as it's not, it's like, essentially like a takeout, limited service
like a
restaurant.
restaurant.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Under
And,
ag and markets versus like a grocery store
uh,
market.
it's under, I think it's actually defined as neighborhood market, but in the health department requirements, as far as flow, it wants it being a limited service restaurant with no more than 16 seats. And that has the same flow rate as essentially like a wet retail store.
Right.
And so, I'm happy to answer more questions, but we do have to have a pre-submission conference, so that was so this is kind of an introduction to this application. And then, so my question would be, can we move forward with scheduling that pre-submission conference hearing? And that would just, and the question about the.
Either way, you can do that.
We can do that
Yeah, yeah,
regardless,
yeah,
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 okay.
yeah.
I just want to make sure
One
of
way or the other,
protocol.
one way or the other.
Right, great, okay.
Any additional comments? So.
So I think there's a zoning question.
Yep. So we'll get that interpretation as we move forward with the pre-submission conference. Proposed May 11th.
That would be the second one on that meeting, I believe.
That's
Almost the 4th.
That's the third.
Oh, it's the
There'll be
third?
four- There'll be 4.
So you're deeming it complete? You've got
Deeming
what
it,
you need?
Well, not necessarily complete, we're just moving it forward for the pre-submission conference. But this does have enough to hold the actual conference.
But-
Generally, from my understanding, we don't deem site plans to be correct, yeah.
No, you just have the requisite information to set a pre-submission
Correct.
conference.
So this, for now, as we investigate more regarding the expansion of non-conforming use and that interpretation from the chief inspector, I think we have sufficient information now to proceed with that.
And then if that is a question that we still have to address, I'm going to meet with them before that conference, but I believe that would then be something that would just be in your report at the end, so.
You did a resolution with this, right?
Yes.
That said that it didn't have enough information, so then it should just say it has enough so you can set the conference.
We have to deem it complete to set a conference, Jeff.
No,
If it's
So you
incomplete,
don't just say you have enough information.
You have the requisite information
Right,
to
right,
set the pre-submission conference.
No site
We use
And
deem
do
it
you?
complete as a term of art.
So I'll use that terminology specifically. I have a resolution here.
I can't find it, but I thought I read that it said that you didn't have enough, but maybe that
Yeah,
was.
in the second to last whereas it says,
Have not,
have not been submitted in the form satisfactory for
No, I
an
have to remove
applicant.
that then.
Yeah.
All right.
so you're,
Has been, make that adjustment.
get rid of not.
Okay. May 11th?
okay, so
Yeah.
a motion to deem this with adequate information, and I've never heard that one before. And set a public, is that new? Set a public,
You set the pre-submission conference. Yep.
set a pre-submission conference on May 11th. Motion by Dennis, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have you ever heard that expression before? They've always
I
deemed
think
it complete.
because the way he worded it, it just became what we had to say to accommodate that, so it doesn't sound like it's complete, because that means something different to us.
Please.
Are you ready for the cannabis, or do you want us to finish the rest of the
Yeah.
agenda?
How much do you have? How much more?
I have a few more, actually.
All right, let's take Mike.
Yeah.
We're ready for the cannabis.
Ready for the cannabis. I should have brought samples.
Very
You
funny.
should have brought food, I'm starving.
I'll take food over cannabis.
I've got some.
The two come hand in hand at times.
Food,
Coffee-
right?
Coffee would be great.
So yes, I took down your comments. We can go over them bullet by bullet. And, or why don't I just let you have it for a moment to read yourselves?
Everybody else
Well, let's
doesn't
just read
actually.
them out loud.
Sure. Okay, so for the purpose of educating and informing the public, the planning board requests a list of potential
Requests
sites.
with us.
Thank you. Where cannabis dispensaries could be permitted by special exception. In the event that the state changes any standards with regards to setbacks, the planning board requests the opportunity to comment. For letter E of section 33162.26, the planning board recommends that the town board change the word may to shall in efforts to further study and ensure adequate traffic circulation. This is specifically with that one portion of the code. Okay. The planning board requests additional information on the New York State cannabis dispensary license process, specifically as it relates to the renewal. The town board should consider amending the proposed language to include additional standards identifying a maximum square footage as well as subsequent parking requirements for the proposed use. I wove in your comment. And the planning board further recommends that the town board explore additional special exception standards that consider mapped environmental justice areas for avoidance. Dennis, I think that is perhaps maybe the best way to capture what your concerns were.
Okay. The other comment that never made it in is the town board should explore the limitation of
Non-conforming
change of
uses.
non-conforming use.
Oh, okay.
application.
Existing.
That's really important, because there's a
Yeah.
backdoor way to try and get.
Oh, yeah, and they will use
You will
it.
use
So
it.
what's some language on that, Dennis?
Should
Town
explore
board.
the utilization of limitations for change of non-conforming use application.
Should explore
cannabis.
limitations,
Yeah.
Change.
limitations.
Change of non-conforming use applications
For change of
regarding
use.
cannabis uses. dispensaries.
And did Kathleen say that was a possibility or?
She didn't say it wasn't a possibility.
Okay, so we'll take it as a comment.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
our comment is should explore.
Right,
That
okay.
throws it back to town
Limitations for
board.
change
and
of use applications.
They'll bounce it off their legal.
Okay, so I can add that.
And if you're changing it, I would just say, for the first one, purpose of educating and informing the public, planning board requests an illustration. I thought
Okay.
Kathleen was good, an illustration of potential sites where cannabis dispensaries could and could not, or could not be permitted. I think what you were explaining too made a lot of sense, where it's better, where you can put the exclusionary areas with the radius, because it does get a little too complicated with the
Totally.
other variables.
Well, it's just,
Of where it could be.
more so with this code than others because the state was so clear
Right.
on whether it be property line to the front of the building, and then of
Right.
course an applicant could change the front of the building.
Right,
Or
and
the
once you
entrance.
saw, once I saw the map that you did produce, I was like, oh, it makes sense, because, okay, here's the school, and then here's the exclusionary area.
Didn't make
Okay.
sense to me. I think it should be hatched, personally.
Okay,
But that's a map.
yeah,
thing.
I understand.
That's- yeah.
For the next planner.
So be it. So, any other
You are
comments?
just so relaxed now.
Motion to adopt this report?
Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second by
Second.
Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed,
Thank you, guys.
abstentions,
It's been a
16.
pleasure.
When are you
Good luck.
leaving?
5th or 6th of April. So this is probably
Soon.
Where's
my
your position?
Trust for Public Land in Soho,
You're going into the
nice.
city?
here and there.
Oh,
So I'm told it's remote hybrid, but we'll see.
you'll be in the city.
I already have a schedule that puts me in the city. All right, thank
You'll
you,
enjoy
everyone.
it. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Jeff.
We should have a moratorium on any staff leaving.
You bet. You up to, Claire, you want poop?
Mike's one of those
Where are
rare
you?
staffers who commutes, see, like, he's one of those rare staffers that commutes from the east.
Really?
Yeah.
You're Francis Mulvey, okay.
Francis Mulvey, it's a two-lot subdivision, standard plan.
I didn't know that.
It's a 54,000 square foot rectangular piece. It's a pre-application, so we're here to deem this complete. It is an undersized lot. It will require a variance for the proposed two-lot subdivision. But we can deem this complete
Which
and
building
this
are you on?
schedule a
20?
public hearing
There are two houses on there.
Also for, let me pull it down.
May
There you
11th?
go. May 11th as well. Maybe that rounds out May 11th for applications.
Okay, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, and second by
Second.
Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Good.
Yep.
I just have Puccio, it's a 1-month extension for the action deadline on that project.
Okay, motion?
Motion.
By Gloria, second by
Second.
George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And then I have my 2 plans that, one, the subdivision plan, JSC, was re-signed.
I re-signed and the other one I signed.
And this one you signed, which is Toscana, which is
Yes.
site plan.
So acknowledging 22, signature of JSC Resources, and then, what number is that, 23 Toscano, signed. We've covered everything.
Yep.
16 and 20, is Anthony coming back?
Oh, what was 16?
16 is off.
16 is off.
Yeah, that's
And you have
incomplete.
20 Rose
Uh,
20, clearing?
The site disturbance?
Yeah, what's a site disturbance? That's Jeff.
Yes. So I just do have this one and one more that I have to bring back to the board
Oh, yeah.
to discuss.
All right, let's do 20,
So
Rose
20, which
and
is on
Marata.
page
44 Nassau?
Page 87.
Page 87.
So we have site disturbance located at 44 Nassau Street, Flanders. The applicant, that's a subject property, is overcleared by 2.4%, which equates to, I believe, around 386 square feet. So not a substantial amount of overclearing. The lot is located in Flanders, where most of the vegetation south of the subject property is natural vegetation, also preserved land. The applicant submitted the re-veg plan to restore the vegetation here. They're restoring here in this contiguous area of natural vegetation that already exists, along with this front portion off of Cypress. If you're not familiar with the area, Nassau Street is essentially not really a developed street. So most of this is essentially like a dead-end road for the most part. The applicant's re-veg plan meets our standards, and the selected plantings provide adequate canopy and understory. So I'm recommending that we approve this site disturbance plan.
Jeff,
Yes.
some of these properties are in the core Pine Barrens.
Some. This one is not in the core power brands.
Good. Any questions? Okay, motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria,
Second.
second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And lastly, I do have to bring this back to the board's attention. We discussed possible public hearing, but upon further review, not sure if that is in keeping with our.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
no
yes.
provision in the code for.
Yeah, there's no provision in it.
There's no provision
That
for a
was the
public
one you
hearing,
wanted
it's
to
just
say.
ag fencing. It's just, you say the property farms, then they're allowed to have fencing. So
I'll reiterate.
that is farm piece of property, right, in the
So
area?
Yes.
So do we have to undo anything?
Yeah,
To
you should
rescind.
rescind the previous approval, and it's
And
up to
then-
you, but maybe at the next meeting, if you haven't written it.
I have it written.
You
Yeah,
have
has it
written?
written?
It's right
Okay.
Okay,
That's
so
great.
one motion to rescind the,
The previous, the resolution from the night.
I'll move to rescind.
what's the application name?
Yes,
Deer
5 and 25 Seven Ponds Road
Okay,
It's
where
not
is
for
it?
agricultural
It was not on the
fence.
agenda?
It's
No, it's not,
Well,
he's adding
that's-
it,
Walk on.
he's
Okay.
adding it now.
That wasn't
Walk
the
on.
initial plan. We were supposed to, I think, Lauren, you weren't here for that discussion. But We're
Okay,
going to move forward with
that's
a
right.
public hearing, but
Okay, so we're rescinding our vote on that application. And so let's do that first. Motion by Dennis.
Second.
Second by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. And now we'll revisit this re-veg plan.
Not really
ag
fence.
fence.
Agricultural fencing.
Just
Agricultural
approve the
fence,
ag
sorry.
fencing.
Right.
Ready to approve it.
The application itself does meet chapter 339, or 330, 109 for agricultural fencing. Their proposed structure, proposed materials are consistent with that, so I'd like to.
And all the language that we put
Yeah,
in?
typical
100%.
language.
Typical language, yep.
You know, upkeep
Keep,
and
right.
free of debris,
Good.
those kinds of
I'll
things.
motion.
Yep.
Motion by Kate,
Second.
second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And that is all.
That's it. Motion to adjourn by Dennis, second by Gloria, and
See you
all in
soon.
favor.
Do we have anything
Aye.
contentious tonight?